Welcome to this episode of Dividend Discussion. In this series, I really want to give every dividend investor a chance to tell their story. We're going to get to hear things like when and how they got started, mistakes made, lessons learned, and much, much more. My ultimate hope for this series is for the guest, you the viewer, and even myself to be able to take something away from this conversation to make us all better dividend investors. No matter if you're retired and living off of dividends or just got started yesterday, there's always something to share and even more to learn. So if you're interested in being on your very own episode, reach out to me via email at dividendobsession@gmail.com and I'll be in touch. But without further delay, let's get to the interview. Hello and welcome to another episode of Dividend Discussion here on Dividend Obsession. My name is Troy and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Ted Strzelecki. Ted, go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Hey everyone. So long time, first time, Dividend. I am a father of four, happily married individual, serial entrepreneur. Just can't seem to love the punishment apparently in that aspect. Recently published a book to help out contractors, not just in the investing side, but just overall tighten up their business. I feel like there's a real void in contractors where they don't get the help that they need between YouTube and mentorship. There's something gets lost in a lot of unique cases, but always been obsessed with investing. Just the idea of compound interest to me is it's kind of sexy. So I mean, how can you not, right?
Yeah.
You get hooked early.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, yeah.
Happy to be here.
Again, thank you for taking time to speak with me this morning. And let's just jump right into the first question. So I have to ask the obligatory question. When did you begin investing? And then when did you specifically begin the dividend side of investing?
Okay, yeah. So that's actually a pretty good one. So now I'm 43. It's 2023, one of the last few days of the year here, right? But so you do the math. Born in 80, right? I started investing early. At the age of about 9 and 10, my dad showed me the old Telegram and Gazette. He taught me how to read dividend ratios, PE ratios, all these things as a child. And what's interesting is my dad never graduated high school, but it's clear he wanted me to go further, right? Mm-hmm. So he tried to teach me the things he probably wished he knew, whatever. He always pushed me early on and said, I bought my first house at 21, and that pushed me to buy my first house at 20. I bought a multifamily because, again, I'm consumed by the idea of passive income, compound interest. These things, they kind of perversely exciting. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think the people like yourself, right? Like you obviously know, because you've gone the extent of having a dividend channel like this for people to learn from you. So once you get hooked, once you get that first payment, I think it really decides if this is a path you want to go on, or if this is kind of like, it's kind of cool, but whatever. Like for me, I just saw it and I just saw, wait a minute, I made money this month and I didn't even do anything for it. That to me was like intoxicating. So so I learned stocks early on. At about 16 or 17, I wanted to start trading, and I got the idea, just the whole concept of Wall Street was fascinating. And I think it is to a lot of people. It's also very intimidating because it's just such a massive sector, but it's also a lot of confusing jargon, I think, for a lot of people. So when you simplify it and break it down, and you take the idea of, okay, I'm going to buy small pieces of all these different companies. The first stock I ever bought myself, and I had to use what's called a custodial account because you had to be 21. Is that still a thing? Do you have to be 21 now? But then
I don't know if it's 21 or 18. My son, I have an account for my son. He'll turn 1 next week. And I've had that literally since he had a social security number. So I just set him up.
So I mean, this is how old I am. It was a firm in Worcester, Mass called Off-the-Ring. They're not even around anymore. But I mean, again, this is before the TD Ameritrades and the Schwabs and the E-Trades. This is before online trading, really. So you had to call a broker, call it in. They took your word. You sent the check in. It's crazy when you look thinking back, right? How it used to work.
Yeah.
You basically bought on credit, and hoping that the stock settled up or down, like your client would mail the money in. So it's how I did it. I'm going through high school. I get out of high school. My parents own a fire truck repair company. So growing up in an entrepreneurial house, again, very, finance forward thinking. And I'm seeing what's happening with Yahoo and Lycos. Now that's a company that's not even around anymore, but I bought them. I started buying a large amounts of, for me, Siebel Systems, Sun Microsystems, Cisco is very, very tech heavy. I was riding that EMC wave. They kept splitting every, 18 months. I was crushing it. So I'm 18. I'm making about 60 grand a year at 18. I'm working my ass off
Yeah.
though.
Back in
But
2000, that 60 grand's a good money.
yeah, I mean, I built that pretty quick. I built up almost half a year's salary in relatively quick because these were also the late '90s, right? So anybody who's worth their salt knows, like if you're my age or older, you probably have more hair, hopefully. But if you're my age or older, you also remember like those were the days, and this is insane to think about, like of the pets.com. And if you
Yeah.
look up the story,
Yep.
man, it's legit. Like it didn't matter what IPO you were going to pick. If you picked an IPO right before the crash, you bought in at the morning and you sold in the afternoon, you made money. It didn't even matter what it was. You didn't have to check out the fundamentals.
They say history
Just invest.
history repeats itself. That was very much the same in like 2020, 2021, where like anything like everybody
Yeah.
thought investing was easy because you just bought something and it went up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just so easy. And then you have guys like Michael Burry, right,
Yeah.
who are throwing out the warning signs, and it's like, hey, cut it out, like it's gonna crash. And it's like you don't want to believe it, right?
Yeah.
So my first foray, I was already in love with the stock market. I really fell in love with it when I realized I lost almost all of it in the dot-com bust. And shortly after that, I bought a two-family, kind of, offset, right? All right, well, real estate's a little more stable. I like the passive income of rent. So I started doing more real estate focus, and I got bit by the stock market. But it's ironic because I realized, well, if I can lose that much relatively quick, I can probably also gain it too, right? And that was my naivete, my younger self thinking about it. But it's true, you can make some incredible gains, even as a just a regular common folk person. You can have the good days, especially if you're doing puts and calls, right? As we all know. I have not done as well with those as I would have liked to have. Like there are some certain times where even common guys like you and I can get in on like I was doing Adobe calls during COVID because everybody's doing DocuSigns and all these nobody's seeing each other. Most everything's through email and PDFs, and it was like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Like it was a no-brainer. Zoom was going to skyrocket, right? I didn't see Peloton, and I'm still I missed the Peloton run on those days because someone told me, he's like, you should get in Peloton. It's going to go up. Everybody's at home, and I'm like, nah, it's too expensive. How'd that work out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have a video on my channel talking about how I genuinely don't believe that stock price matters, especially at this point in my life, because like I have such a long timeline that like if I have 20-year timeline, like the odds of any good company that I'm buying today being worth the same or less as it is 20 years from now is slim to none. So like why, like for instance, with my Costco position, Costco is always overvalued according to the metrics, but I'm literally up like 30% on Costco since I bought it in May.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where like, had I listened to what everybody was saying, oh, it's overvalued or whatever, when I first bought it, it was like $4.95 a share. I think my cost basis now is like $5.15 and it's worth like $6.60 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, mathematically, you're like 90%. And I'm just throwing this out there. I'm pulling the stat from mine. But like, and you look at like Staples, Enron, like it is possible, right? I mean, some of these larger companies, Office Max, like these companies to someday implode only do usually to not being early adopters of technology, right? Like, hello, Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Like just if you don't want to adopt the innovative process and you see the disruption and you just choose to ignore it, well, then you kind of choose in your own fate and you kind of deserve what you get, honestly, especially when I myself have built a pretty sizable business at one point, and I got to a point where I had so many people doing the day-to-day tasks that I was able to, for a large portion of the day, kind of remove myself and just be the visionary, looking, what's a couple of quarters out, what's a couple of years out that I can maybe take advantage of, get into, leverage, however, to maximize, the opportunity for all the people working with me and all my clients, right? when I look at companies like that, it's hard, but you're right with Costco, like the whole business model that they have, I'm a fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're gonna pay a membership fee. Like I love this, right? It's like the earliest of subscription models that now everybody seems to love, right? Adobe and Microsoft. You can't. Can you even buy Microsoft anymore? I think you're forced to pay for it by the month, like forever, right? That subscription model as a business, Microsoft, another great dividend stock. And let's be honest, with the whole AI thing, like again, right? Seeing down the road, it's the share price in this particular case. I think with tech stocks, obviously volatile, but when you have something as like a mountain, like Google or Microsoft, like so much cash hoard in the bank, Apple, you see guys like Buffett jumping on Apple. Now, if you would have told me 15 years ago, hey, Warren Buffett's going to be one of the largest shareholders in Apple, I would have been like, you're out of your mind. The guy likes, consumer staples, industrials, boring things, companies that make transmissions and rear ends for trucks and and I myself am also very much intrigued by the boring companies like that too. Even to this day, like even now, I'm getting into LBOs myself personally, working with partners and buying and selling in companies and talking to business owners. And I find myself gravitating towards like the unsexiest things, like manufacturing.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not talking about computer chips. I'm talking about like shopping carts.
Yeah.
Right. Things like that. It just, to me, I can see where the business is. I can look at the finances. It's predictable growth. I'm a fan. I'm okay with the slow dime versus the quick nickel. Right.
Yeah.
And obviously you are too, because in the long run, it's far more advantageous, but it is a discipline.
Yeah.
Especially, and you know this, like, I mean, there's a few years between us, but we obviously people between our age groups and age groups similar to ours, you see that, the guy who's like, he went long on this and he made like, $27,000 on a call option. I got a couple of friends that enjoyed the GameStop run. And it's like, yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I'm clapping for you. I'm cheering. I'm loving that you made some crazy money. But at the same time, like, okay, now put it into something boring. But they don't.
Yeah. No,
right?
Then it goes into Shiba Inu. Yeah.
It's because they keep going forever, right?
Yeah,
and that's like, and that brings us to every 99, 07, right? Every crash is because it's going to go on forever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's one thing I like asking people that have actually been doing this for a while is like, so when you started, what was it? I know your dad, you said that around 9 or 10, your dad was talking to you about like dividend metrics and stuff like that. So did you quite literally have the idea to start investing into the dividend stocks right away? Or was it to like more or less get investing and then you like slowly trickled your way into dividend stocks?
Yeah, no. So around 9, 10, 11, it was more like the schooling, right? It was like, here's how it is. And then it was a benefit to me because I was able to take questions I had at that young age, right? And again, this is before internet. This is the late 80s, right? So this is like a whole other frontier. And it's wild to say that because to think about a time when the internet didn't exist,
that's
almost seems like impossible right now.
Yeah.
So, very much back in the 80s was like the last generation of like growing up in like the 40s or 50s, right? Like dad worked, mom stayed home. Like when you shut the TV off at 7 p.m. with the bed, that's it. The world stopped, right? Whatever your local news guy told you is pretty much all you got to know other than like your local paper. And so it was hard to find like, get on Twitter and get like what's happening instantaneously in Brazil. And then, all right, let's short sugars, right? Like you can't do that then. So you had to kind of go with the slow roll, which we're talking about now, which is kind of like what your whole channel's based on. So it's nice that there are younger people like yourself who understand the principle, who have the discipline, because that's really what it is. While our friends are hitting the GameStop buzzers and going, oh my God, I have a friend who rode GameStop, and he's already very wealthy. All right. He's kind of a mentor to me. He's older than me, but he's got the right connections too. But let's just suffice to say, he's already, he's pretty close to a 3 comma guy already. He took his GameStop He took a percentage of his GameStop, went out and bought the new Aston Martin. So, like, you see that, and you're
I mean,
like,
it's better than
oh,
losing it, I guess. Yeah, like, yeah.
yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah.
but he, again, he's an older gentleman. He's disciplined. So he took his money. He cashed out. He took a portion of it, went to the Aston Martin. And then, like, I think he took some of the rest of it and put it in like a 40-unit apartment building out near Boston. Like, this he's got people around in the know. But, you can't help but go for a ride in an Aston Martin and think, oh, man,
Yeah.
this would have been
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Thanks, GameStop. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is wild. Like, I mean, that stuff is, and that's where the FOMO comes, like, where I do a really good job, in my opinion, of like taking the emotions out of like anything I do, especially stock market related. So like the FOMO does kick in when you see somebody, oh, this stock just went up 27% today. Or even like, so the most recent example I have is Costco. I think we were mentioning before, I don't know if that was during recording or not, but like we were just talking about Costco. I bought Costco. Then just, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, Costco announces that they're going to give you a $15 special dividend per share, which is, that's sweet. Like I
Oh,
wasn't,
yeah.
I know Costco has a reputation of giving special dividends every so often, but I didn't buy it because of that. I bought it because it fit my metrics. But
Go Kirkman.
yeah, exactly. So now you have, like, Costco, when I bought, was like $4.94, $4.95. Now it's in the 660s, and now people are going to see this special dividend, and what are they going to do? Oh, I would love to have $15 per share, but they're buying it after it already went up 30-ish%. And now, like, that's where, and now, oh, if Costco goes down 5% to start 2024, oh, investing's a scam, whatever. And I'm just like, no, like, you literally let this one decision, outside of any other considerations, affect that you were going to or not going to buy a company, and now you're getting bit for it. And you think it's their fault or our fault, not your fault.
Yeah, it's
never
a
that.
slow game.
Yeah. So,
but it's a slow game. It's just like we were talking about success in business overall. They're always the high and lows, the flash in the pan moments, the moments you can take opportunity. But like, it is the long game, right?
Mhm.
It's the quickest way to become wealthy is slowly and steadily.
Yeah.
That's
Well, and
it.
I really like your quote that you said you'd rather make a slow dime
Slow
than a quick
dime than a
nickel.
quick nickel.
Yeah, I've never heard that before, but like the thing that a lot of people like, especially, I'm sure you have plenty of friends that don't care about investing and don't care about dividend investing, whatever.
Most of them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way. I'm talking to, whoever at the gym about dividend investing and whatever, and they seem to be under the understanding that it is either a quick nickel or a slow nickel. And I'm like, you're not getting it. Like, it's not a wait a long period of time for the same amount of money. And the best part about it is, I try to tell people that are like high yield investors in like their 20s. I'm trying to like get to them. I'm like, yeah, it's really cool that you're making $400 a month in dividend income when you don't need it. But would you rather make $1,600 a month in dividend income when you do need it? Or would you rather it still be $400 a month when you do need it? Like, that's what you're missing out. It's opportunity cost.
100%. So here's a good one, right? Okay, so back in like, I don't know, 18 or 19 or so, I had a guy working for me. He's got a little bit put away in an IRA. He wants to do real estate. He literally came to work for me, with me, because he's like, look, I'm maxed out where I am. I see that you're buying real estate. I see that you're taking care of your future, and I want to be on board. So he literally came to work for me just so he can get, like, he can soak it up, right? And then I showed him, we were talking about finances, and he was talking about like something, and I forget what the discussion was about, but I brought it back to him. Like, yeah, I was like, well, it's people like you that pay your own cell phone bill. He goes, what do you mean? I was like, dude, I don't even pay my own cell phone bill at this point. And he said, what the hell are you talking about? I said, AT&T. And I pulled up my iPhone. I was like, AT&T pays me to have this phone.
Yeah.
He goes, what do you mean? I was like, my quarterly dividends cover my next 3 months bill.
Yeah.
So I can do a drip, or I can just use that, cover the bill, cover the taxes I'm going to get charged on it, and like, I'm getting a cell phone for free.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's legit. If you can think in terms in the metrics of that way, okay? And if, especially someone of your age, oh my goodness, by the time you turn 60, 70 years old, it's going to be like, you're going to be like that guy. Did you read the story? I'll send it over to you if you even get a chance to see this thing on your own. But it's a guy in like some, very small town in Vermont, of all places. The guy, I think he worked at a gas station part-time, and I think he was a janitor part-time, like 2 part-time jobs, or like one was 40 hours, whatever. But like, two jobs where neither make an abundance of money, right? They're not like sexy jobs. Guy lived alone. He did his thing, I think. But the whole point I'm going with the story is like when he died, he left like $6 or $7 or $8 million to like the town library and like the fire department and stuff. And to look at this guy and know he never made more than like 30 grand in any given year of his whole life, right? And he left like it was like $7 or $8 million to his town in a charity. And it was like, how did he do it? Was it drugs? And it's like, I love how that's how the first thing we go to
Yeah.
is like malicious and illegal activity, right?
Yeah.
Not that this guy could have been an astute, disciplined investor over the last like 70 years, right? No, he had to sell drugs. And it's like, no, when they peeled back the layers and they went by the line items, it was all like Coca-Cola, John Deere, again, nothing sexy, right? Nothing Amazon riding that wave and none of that buzz. It was all boring dividend drips, all of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just really good to hear for like, the person that might be watching that like you don't need to be, a lawyer or a doctor and make, $200,000 a year to do it. Like it and the wife and I've talked about this 100 times on the channel, but the wife and I just recently combined expenses. Like she had her accounts, I had my accounts. The first thing that we did before we actually combined money was to both write down what we spend on a monthly basis and then highlight things that we can either eliminate or significantly reduce. And then we did that. And because like, there's like, you always have to figure out ways to have more money at the end of the month. That's how you invest. That's how you get ahead. And a lot of people are like, oh, I need a better job that makes more money. Nobody ever looks in the mirror and say, how can I spend less first? Like, what can I reduce? Do I need 74 subscriptions to all these different channels? Like, do I need that? Do I need Apple and Hulu and Disney Plus and Paramount? Like, do you need all those? Like, do you even have time to watch all that? And just stuff like that. So like we cut cable. We got a thing called a super box on Amazon, which has everything you need for free. So it's like $300. So we just did that. And that was basically 1.25 months worth of cable. So we just bought that. And then now after we've already had it for 1.25 months. So now it's free after that. Like our cable bill is significantly reduced. So just little things like that. I think that is the important takeaway from that story. I don't know if it's the specific one that you're talking about, but I do remember there was a gas station clerk that did the same thing that you're talking about. So maybe there's multiple examples, which is even better.
Troy, it seems like every 3 to 5 years, these stories either leak out, and I don't know if the media's pushing them out to get the younger folks interested in possibly. I mean, you have to look at how the media is portrayed and what they're really doing now. Worldwide, not just, North America, but like worldwide. It seems like the media has agenda. Again, going back to the 80s, right? When I would turn on the news would come on and it would say, here's what happened. A man in this town got ran over by a train, or like your favorite sports team did this. Now the news tells you, here's what happened and here's what you should be thinking about as you're reading the story. Here's what happened and here's what you need to know. And it's like, hey, hang on. Whoa.
Yeah. Let me figure that out. Yeah.
Right. Like I'm a grown man. I can take care of that. I've run businesses and family. Like, let me make that decision for myself and for my community. You don't need to make it for me. It's like the dumbing down of everything. So I wonder if some of these stories come out sometimes just because it's like, hey, we need to get the younger generation involved in the market, because if we don't, in America right now, we have this huge problem that nobody's talking about, which is the baby boomer generation is, by population, by demographic, the largest population of generation there is. There's more people in that. Obviously they'll be dying off over the next 10 to 15. It's kind of it's kind of a sad thing to look at, but it's true. Yeah. But when you look at, so like there's an enormous amount of wealth transfer that's going to be transpiring over the next 10 years. And it's going to be something like a record number of businesses being transferred and or sold or just closed. The amount of assets that's going to be transferred. And the trouble I see is the younger crowd is so wrapped up in the YOLO movement, right? And it's like, these guys making the money on AMC shorts and whatnot and the apes and everything else. And there's an entire culture that they think that this is normal and this is okay. And it's like, No, you don't. Listen, if you had to work super hard and scrimp and save that 5 or 10,000, which most people can't even do today right now. But if you can manage to do that, and then you think it's just normal and okay to just slap it all on, it's like going to the casino, right? Give me 10 grand on black, right? And it's like, you hope it works. And you know what's worse? Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
And it makes people think, oh, I can just keep doing this. I'm only 12 trades away from being a billionaire, from doubling in money. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true. But the mathematical probability of you doing that is like blind people seeing again, right? And deaf people hearing again. It's just not going to happen, man. I think it was Warren Buffett, speaking of dividend people, who has that once-a-year bet with the college, what is it, like the Sweet 16 or something? Where if you can pick every bracket, Warren Buffett will give you $1 billion. Warren Buffett is a mathematician. All right. Now, if you know this story about him, you've probably done your research, but something along the lines of he was once in a room. Now, I'm going to get this wrong for all you viewers, but you'll get the basis of it. He was once in a room with a company, and it was like, I think like 19 people in a room. And he bet like 100,000. He said something like, I'll bet everybody in this room collectively, you out of the 19 people can make up 100 grand. I'll wager 100 grand. And he's not a betting guy, that at least 2 of you people have the same birthday. And it was like, well, all right. If John Smith had made that bet with me, I'd probably take it up on it. But when a guy like Warren Buffett, who just sits in front of his desk reading things, doing math for 8 to 12 hours a day, makes that bet, chances are.
What's that thing? Is that that's called an abacus? The thing with like the little slidey like that they used to do math on. I just picture Warren Buffett sitting in a dark room with just one lamp over his shoulder, just doing statistics on that thing, and I'm just like, I don't even know how those things work, to be honest. Like I don't know why
he has that.
It's like
he has
extra
that
fingers.
College tournament thing.
Yeah,
and nobody's ever done it. Nobody's even come close.
Yeah,
right, because it's math. Right. And it's just, it goes to show you that when you think that you have a great day, you have a win, you have a great day, be humble, right? Take a large portion of that and put it into something boring that will just pay you, where your 40 shares can become 42 and become 45 and become 48 and then 54, like those. That's how you get rich.
Yep. And that's so I don't want to mess up your segue because you just did a great job. But that's one of the things I love doing with my monthly recaps is I literally show you at the start of the year, this is how many shares my account had. At the end of last month, this is how many shares I had. At the end of this month, this is so that way you can see like where I started the year, where I was just a month ago, and where I am now, and stuff like that. And I thought that was really cool just to have like those 3 checkpoints that you can see. Like, this is what real progress. It's not, oh, let me buy an extra 400 shares of this. Like, that's not, I mean, that does happen later on in life. But when you first get started, it's like, oh, I just bought 0.236 shares of Apple. Like, that's how it works. And you just do that day in, day out, or week in, week out, or paycheck in, paycheck out. And then eventually you get 10, 20, 30 shares of Apple and you keep doing it.
Hell yeah. I mean, look, there's also the tax side of it too. I feel like not enough people, and I am by no means an accountant, but I've had some pretty great successes in my life, and I've had some enormous failures too, right? And I own all of it at this point, right? Like, okay, what can I learn from it? And when I look back at it now, as I'm looking at, Q1 of 24 and like a day and a half, right? At this point, like I look at, it's not really the home run days. It's about the tax deferment, right? And again, this is where dividends make a lot of sense because you're deferring in all of it. Like if you're doing it in a drip, you gotta love it, right?
People are quick to poo-poo on dividends for that same reason. They're like, oh yeah, how does it feel to get taxed on money 2-3 times because the corporation got taxed, then you're getting taxed on the earnings and stuff like that. But like they just like, no matter how you split it, if you earn $100,000 in dividends, not only did you not work, and now these are obviously qualified dividends, but $100,000 in qualified dividends versus $100,000 in money that you had to work to earn. Not only did you not work for the year to get the same amount of money, but you're also in, what is it, the 15% tax bracket for dividends for 100 grand, and then you're also in that is that the 22 or 27% tax bracket for ordinary
So
income?
it's funny we're talking about this. I was literally just reading. I live in Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, and I'm reading what the next year's is going to be.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Massachusetts is doing us somewhat of a solid this year on the brackets, what they're allowing for. Like, I have 4 children, so that's a haven.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing. But I feel like when it comes to dividend investing, when it is time to start, enjoying some of the fruits of your well-deserved long-term disciplined behavior here, right? When it comes time to it, I feel like that's a moment you really want to find yourself an accountant that understands you individually, not just dividends and taxes and stuff. Any accountant can help you with that. But realistically, if you can find an accountant that's like, all right, what are you going to do? You're approaching 65 or whatever, your Social Security and these things. Like, do you have a plan? Because you will get smacked in taxes. And let's be honest, when you look at like the lotto winners, the federal government is the biggest winner every time the lotto gets like to $1 billion.
Yeah.
And you look at the guy gets like $11. Uncle Sam is going, oh, this is a great win for us. And it's like, man, does that not just kick you in the nuts once in a while and say, wake up? Because, when you look at, and again, I'm pretty grateful. I have some mentors that I can ask questions to and things like that. So when I ask them, I get 2 answers from high level wealthy people, ultra high net worth people. I get 2 answers when I ask them about taxes. Sometimes some of them, a smaller group will say, get yourself an accountant that will say, what are you doing and what do we need to pay? And then they'll find you the legal ways to get you narrowed down to where you need to be, right? And again, there's so many vehicles for this. But again, we're not taught this in school.
Nope.
Right? We're taught, how many planets there are, and then every other year they're changing and how many there are, and everything else. But they're not teaching us how to write a check, the value of your credit score, like all these things that we need to survive and support a family. Nah, not even on the list.
Well, so going back to what you were saying before with what the news tells you versus like basically now they don't even really tell you the news, they just tell you how you should feel about the news. So like, do you like putting on our tinfoil hats? Do you think that the government or whatever is running whatever's going on, do you think that that's all like they can't be oblivious to what is and isn't being taught in schools? So like, do you think that they're not teaching some of this stuff on purpose?
My honest opinion is it's a YouTube video. It's like a guy rapping over it. I don't know if it's a whole song or whatever, but it shows like the phone 100 years ago, the phone today, the car 100 years ago, a car today. And it shows like the school system created by like right here in Massachusetts, actually by Horace Mann in the 1800s. Okay. The school system 100 years ago, 150 years ago, school system today.
Same thing.
Almost nothing has changed.
One's a black and white picture, and one's a color picture. Like,
that's pretty much right. There's a few more kids in the class; they're dressed a little bit different, but and then you dig into this and you look at like the Rockefellers and all the conspiracy people. I don't know how much weight there is, but like the whole idea of we want to create a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers. Now, here's where it gets interesting. My wife and I, since COVID, we've been homeschooling our children. Okay. My kids aren't ahead of equal-aged children in the school system. My kids are, I don't know, I swore there. My kids are like happy.
Yeah.
When if you meet my children, they're just like overly grateful, positive, opportunistic thinking. You give my kids a problem, they immediately look for the opportunity in it, right? Because we teach them that. Like, I do a lot with commerce, and I work with a lot of business owners. I have my own projects going on, real estate investing. It is nothing for me to sit down my twin 10-year-old daughters and go over, like one of them is a roofing company we're developing right now. Okay. I'm literally showing my daughters at 10 years old how a business begins, filing the paperwork with the IRS and all this others. It's like all these things, again, not taught in school. And nor is investing. So you don't have to own a business or be like, an attorney, but you should be able to understand the basic rudimentary concepts of finance.
Yeah.
I mean, the really granular level, entry level stuff, and nothing.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, that's where my
And
conspiracy theory, like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any stretch, but like, that's where like I have to wonder. Cause like I said, it's impossible not to know it's a problem, and it's not a yesterday problem. This, like, I wasn't taught. I remember the only thing I didn't learn to write a check until I worked for a bank. And there was a lady that came in that said, "Hey, I need somebody to help me write this check." I was the teller. I was like, "Hey, I need to call my manager because I don't know how to write a check. Like, I don't know how to do none of that." Like, now it's not hard. It's just something that you're not taught. And I'm just like,
Right.
okay, so it's not a problem that just popped up. It's been around for years. People know it's a problem, but yet nothing's being done to change it. Why? And like, I'm a why guy. Like, I need to know the why behind
listen,
everything.
I'm in the last 5 or 10 years of my life, I've pretty much thrown coincidences out the window. Like, they just seem to be almost right. So when you think of, like, you're right, you have a hell of a point. And it's not years, by the way. It's at this point, it's decades approaching over a century of this. These have been a common problem, and yet everybody's talking about it, and yet no action, right? And then it's hilarious we're talking about this because, like, a week ago, I see a headline. Perfect example. Oregon no longer will require for pupils, children, whatever, young men and women. I actually can't call them that either. So people,
kids,
to graduate high school. Okay, so now Oregon is now going to let people graduate high school, even if this is ridiculous. Okay, even if they can't read, write, or do basic math, you will still get a high school diploma.
What do you get in grades on? Attendance?
I don't know.
That's impressive.
Let's be honest, with all the Karens in the world, even if your son misses 20 days of school, if you go in and start waving the finger around and saying, "I pay your salary," and blah, 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 and I'm going to go on Twitter, and you have a phone up next to you, she's going to pass your kid anyway. So it's like, all we are doing is setting the bar lower and lower. When I look at other countries in Asia and India, they're in Middle East, Qatar, all these other, they're making their school, their children getting more intelligent, more advanced, especially about investing.
Yeah.
Right? And here we are saying, I don't even need to read.
Yeah. Well,
Does this look like it's going to end well for anybody?
No, I think, like, what you were talking about, like with the baby boomers and the wealth transfer and stuff like that. I think, and I was listening to the All In podcast. None of this is even related to what we're talking about, but like, I was listening to the All In podcast, and they were talking about like the wealth gap and how it's continuing to increase. And they're talking about, like, one thing that they mentioned is like, you don't get to see how many people are jumping different incomes. Like, it doesn't show you, oh, this person used to be in the bottom quartile and now they're in the second quartile. Like, it doesn't show you the difference in that. And then also, I think the gap is going to continue to get wider, and it's strictly going to be because it, like, basically what it's going to separate is the people that want to know versus the people that don't want to know. The people that want to think for themselves versus the people that want to be told what to think. And like, that's just literally the difference. Is like, okay, are you, like, at high school, are you going to decide what to do with your money, or are you just going to, be another cog in the wheel? Well, if you're another cog in the wheel, then you're basically going to be limited to these bottom two quartiles. And if you're not, then you have a chance to be in the top two.
You are so accurate. What's funny is what you're saying now reminds me of part of my investing education journey was I think I'm about 16 or 17 at the time. So like I was always able to be funny on command, right? So I was always like a popular-ish type of kid in school, right? Like that means shit. But the whole point, what I'm saying is like, you'd never know I was a closet geek, right? On Friday nights, I was home reading, right? And my favorite books to read was, I got The Millionaire Next Door from like Thomas Stanley and The Millionaire Mind. I read those books. I can't even tell you how many times I read those books. And when you talk about like the economic outpatient care, the EOC, and then like the average self-made millionaire drives an F-150, wears flannel shirts, like, you'd never know it. And it's like, the reason you'd never know it is because MTV doesn't have a show called Cribs for the self-made millionaires.
Yeah.
Right? They've got the ones like, I just signed a deal with the Knicks. It's like $4 million. So I bought this $2 million house, and it's like, your tax guy hates you because you're about after you pay your tax. How many times have you seen like these NFL guys broke, right? Like Shaq talks about it. Like, at that $1 million check, he spent it like a few hours.
Yeah.
And his accountant's like, dude, you're supposed to put money away for taxes. Again, not being, tax educated. The meme that gets me the most is it's like, and it's like a person between the IRS, right? It's like their investments and their work and everything else. And it's like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. IRS, how much should I pay you? And it's like, I don't know, you figure it out. But if you're wrong, you're going to jail. And it's like,
yeah.
Wait, what?
Theo Vaughn is a comedian, and he talked about that too. He goes, I don't know why you have to file my taxes because you're just gonna tell me whether I'm right or wrong anyway. He goes, you know the answer, just tell me what the answer. Like, why do I have to do all this work and sit here and stress about all this stuff?
I'm a fan of his. I've just only recently discovered him, and I feel like he's a guy that years from now we're gonna secretly learn he's got like a 200 IQ or something, and people gotta think he's like, oh, he's slow or something. I'm telling you, it's a guy like that who's dumb enough to play, who's smart enough to play dumb.
Yeah. Or it's just that he's dumb enough to not understand some of the like ploys that everybody else will fall for. So he just like continues amongst his path. And so what is that movie, Idiocracy or whatever, that came out back in like 2000? Literally everything that they mentioned is what's going on now. Like everything's about caffeine and electrolytes. Everybody's wearing Crocs. Everybody like you want to move as little as possible. Everything, like they even talked about like Costco. Everything was a big store where everybody just goes and gets everything in bulk. It's literally all that stuff's happening, and it's wild. I like Theo Vaughn. I mean, I don't listen to him a ton. But he did talk about that. It was one of his interviews he was doing. He was talking about taxes. He goes, yeah, I don't know why we have to do it when they're like, they literally know the answer. They're just seeing if you get it right or not. And if you're too wrong, they'll audit you. But if you're kind of wrong, they'll just tell you you're kind of wrong.
I've had my fun with the IRS. It's I'll say this, it's not like the horror stories you hear.
Yeah.
Right. Of like, oh, they're gonna come in and take. They reach out, they're like, hey, look, so what are we going to do about this, right? You bring in your people, you go over everything gets scrutinized, whatever. Come to find out, I feel like a lot of people, like the IRS will send to business owners like, hey, you underpaid, you owe us $6,000. You have any idea how many people will just pay it because they're afraid of getting audited?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, crap, I'll just pay the $5 or $6 grand, send it in, because I don't want them to come look at me. Like, oh my God. Like,
there's a chance they could be wrong too. Yeah.
I would rather be like, no, come look at me because I think you owe me money.
Yeah. I mean, it's the I don't know if there's a name for this or not, but like when you put there, I won't mention any names just for respect. There are guys on YouTube that put certain letters behind their names, making it think like they know what they're talking about with money. Yeah. When in reality, some of the stuff, if you actually look at what they're recommending or not recommending, they're putting out there on the Ethernet, you're like, it's not good stuff, but they're trusted because of the letters behind their name. And I'm just like that. Dude. Like same thing with the IRS. It's just like, oh, I'm the IRS. That means I know what I'm talking about, and there's no way I'm wrong. I'm like, no, that's not how that works. Like that's why I'm a why guy, and I want to know, even if you are right, I want to know why you're right. I want to know how you got to that conclusion, why I was wrong, like all those things. So.
I tell you, I don't put a lot of stock into the initials or the whatever, the letters after or before people's names anymore in that context, because there's a guy, he's got MD after his name, and he's a prolific investor. You might have heard of him. He's an up and coming guy, Michael Burry.
Yeah,
that guy.
Yeah.
Right. Like the guy's a medical doctor.
Yeah,
and he. Talk about playing the long game, right? It's like a 4 or 5 year window where he's like, look, this is going to happen. And the whole world is telling him, dude, you are out of your mind. You are just clapped out, man. There's no way, you're smoked, right? Like, we know you're like kind of like an eccentric genius, but you're missing the mark. It's the bedrock of America. It's never going to collapse. And he's going, okay.
Yeah.
You done? Right. And the guy's a medical doctor.
Yeah.
Right. So when I meet people and they're like, oh, I'm this, and I'm like, oh, I have this and an MBA, and it's like, cool, man. Are you a good, decent person?
Yeah.
Can you listen to learn, or do you listen to reply? Like, do you have some morals? Are you doing anything to benefit your community? Like, if not, and you're just focused on like what your name carries for weight, man, you are a shallow dude.
Yeah. I don't know. And like that, my grandma on my mom's side fell for that whole stuff. She has this guy that she follows because he has all these credentials. He used to be on the stock market and all kinds of stuff. she ended up selling her Tesla position back in like, I don't know, August or something, because he said he should. And of course, his recommendation was that you need to buy gold and silver, because that's the stuff that we're investing in, even though you get destroyed by the market over the long term. But what do I know? Anyway, so all that to say, so we did have a good segue until I ruined it. So the going back, the question is, what is your, so just dividend related, what is your
Yeah.
biggest dividend related mistake? And more
Oh,
importantly than the
easy.
mistake, more importantly than the mistake is, what lesson did you learn from making that mistake?
Boeing, BA.
Yeah.
So on the preface, right? Let's peel the layer back. Let's talk about Boeing. So Boeing is part of a duopoly. Now you want to talk about sustainability and basically a company that, even more so than the too big to fail bank bailout they had to do, right? You want to talk about a company that cannot go out of business because the government needs it for both militarily reasons, but also if it goes out, then it leaves a monopoly in the aircraft aviation industry, right? So a duopoly, safe bet, plenty of cash on hand. Let's be honest. I mean, when they had the 737, I want to say this is around 2020, I forget, or 2020 or 20, yeah, 19 or 20, somewhere around there. They had the 737 MAX problem where the planes kept bouncing off the ground, unfortunately. So I put it. I already had a decent position in Boeing because it was paying. I want to say roughly around $8 or $9 a share for a dividend. It was pretty good. It was cranking them out. A good, decent dividend. And I'm doing a drip, man. And I'm just, the accident happened. And I'm looking, and I'm a research guy. I'm not Warren Buffett, but I look back and I think, okay, whenever they've had an accident with a plane, obviously the stock tanks day couple, day of, day or two after, couple days after, it starts to, they find the reason why. Sometimes it's pilot error, sometimes it's mechanical. It is Boeing's fault, whatnot, but for the most part, it's usually a pretty solid recover. I decide to go heavier than I should have, and I buy more after the first initial headline. When you look at what the stock did almost every month since then, I mean, the dividend's gone now anyway, but like when you look at what it did, it just kept going down and down. And I'm trying to dollar cost average. I'm thinking, all right, more from me, right? And then they get rid of the dividend. I'm like, no, oh my God, no. What? So like that was one of the ones I had to bite the bullet. I'm like, I didn't totally get out of my position, but I got rid of most of it because, with the dip, I don't know when it's going to reach back to what it was, if ever.
So
right?
what was the takeaway in that? What was your lesson that you learned from that?
I guess I should just continue to put the same amount in every month and quarter that I have been. And I tried to seize an opportunity, Troy, and I got my ass handed to me. And I just tradition again, and it goes to show, right, that just like it says in every 10K we get from our investments, which is basically, past performance is not indicative of future results, right? Something to that, like it's so accurate. It's something that I'm grateful for now because you can take the loss in taxes, right? And then I'm able to say, next time something like this happens, sure, I may try to do it on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't pan out, I still got my initial capital investment, right? And if it does, great.
Yeah.
But I feel like going forward, maybe I'll take a smaller percentage and play the calls or puts, depending on what's going on with it. But that's what I learned, which is, I broke away from my slow and steady, constant buildup method. I got greedy for a minute and I paid.
Yeah.
And I won't do that ever again, ever.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like, that's a really good lesson for me too, is because I like to, I dollar cost average every day because I'm a why guy and I also overthink things all the time. So like I go down rabbit holes and end up wanting to know this and this and this and this. So like I was like, okay, cool. I want to add money. I want to do dollar cost averaging. I want to add money every Tuesday. And then I started looking like, well, is Tuesday the best the day to add money? Like, what if it goes down a lot on Monday and then it goes up a lot on Tuesday? Now I'm buying it for more expensive if I would have bought it on Monday. But maybe Monday is like everybody's excited about the market, and Friday everybody's getting paid, so maybe they're adding a lot of money. So I was like, all right, you know what? Screw, like, just literally I take all the money I'm going to add for the month. I put it in my little table I have my allocations that I want all my stocks to be. It divides what that should be value-wise by the end based off the new cash added. And then I just divide it by the number of days that there are to invest. And I just literally 10, 11, 12, $14, whatever it is, every day in Apple, Costco, Microsoft, Visa, Starbucks, whatever. Like, I don't care. And it does. That's one of the ways that I was able to effectively take my emotions out of the market. Like, I'm just like, okay, every day, whether Costco's up 4% or down 0.5%, doesn't matter. I'm buying it every day.
Well, I mean, especially, I mean, you're in your mid-20s. Like, honestly, you're in such a phenomenal position, man. That's awesome. And I'm excited for you because you're just going to crush it. Like, the long-term data is there, right? You learn pattern behavior, and then you learn social economic behavior in like Mike Burry said, nobody seems to learn anything. We keep doing this to ourselves. We keep overspending, over leveraging as a society, right? And there are those of us like the reason I'm where I am now is because I have messed up so bad. I personally had massive failures, bigger than most people will ever fail at. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely could have let it end me and undo me in every way possible. But you know what? Like right now, I've got the brightest road ahead because I'm able to take all of that. And of course, nobody wants to sit with it right when you're going through massive failures in the initial stages. But I learned something this time around, which is if you're willing to sit in it during it, okay, and take all the crap that goes with it, you learn the most from your mistake. And to take a point from what you're talking about, it's interesting that of all the self-made affluent individuals I know, I too follow this same method, which is if you're going to approach me, like if I'm going to do a leverage buyout into your business, I'm starting at no. Mm-hmm. There is a phenomenal book. I don't know if you ever read it from Chris Voss. Have you ever heard of Chris Voss? Mm-mm. It's called Never Split the Difference.
Okay? I've heard of that book before.
You got to get it. Okay. It will change your outlook on commerce, enterprise, everything. But when I start from no, because no is protection and yes is commitment, right? So, and I'll give you an example. If you say, hey, Troy, what are you doing Saturday? You're like, oh, nothing. I'll be like, cool. Can you help me move? Crap.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Right. Like I did not want to do that. But if you're like, I don't know what's going on. You see, you're protecting your freedom, your time, whatever. So I'm almost always at no for everything people ask me. And I need you to convince me to yes. And I'm not like a stubborn guy about it, but like I'm protecting my time and like my children and my time with my wife. My wife spent an amazing rock for me. Like I'm protecting all of that by saying no.
Yeah.
Bring me to yes, though, right? I'm open.
Yeah.
But it's funny, stocks, real estate investing are the only two things where I'm automatically I'm in.
Oh, here I am thinking I had a good convincing argument to get you on the show, and you were just already in.
So but what's funny is like when it comes to real estate and stock and dividend investing, more than anything, okay? Like I'm not going to be automatically in on a tech startup. Nope, because I don't know that space. My background, I invest in my background. My background is civil infrastructure, heavy civil construction, residential construction. I can tell you, how many shingles GAF moved last year, right? Because that's the space I'm in. I love Owens Corning, right? All these things, right? The only like controversial place that I'll mess around with is like Restoration Hardware, right? Like not exactly it's kind of like I wouldn't say like a fly-by-night stock, good business model, but like in times like right now, and the interest rates are killing the real estate industry, not a good stock to be in. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of good buyers going out and buying $2,200 faucets right now, So when times are good, recognize that, hop in. But real estate and dividend investing, Troy, is the only thing I'm really like automatically at yes. And then I start looking for a no. Mm-hmm. why I should pull back. It sounds like you've got something similar in your own ways too. But the dollar cost averaging daily, like, I mean, I wish I had the time. I absolutely would do it. I traditionally look at mine on Sunday nights before the week ahead.
Yeah.
That's when I do most of my planning.
Well, and that's how I literally that's how I got to the daily thing, because I was like, I know there's people that are doing that. They got paid on Friday. They use the weekend to look at their stocks. Monday is going to be a busy day, whether they're buying or selling, whatever. I was like, and literally every day I was going through, I was like, but this could happen. This could happen. I was like, I'm already getting too like emotional and caught up in like basically finding reasons not to. So I was like, I need to find a reason to. And I was like, let me just do it every day regardless. So that was, I mean, it's worked. And like I said, there's certain days where like people all the time tell me that stuff I'm buying is overvalued. And here's the charts and here's support and stuff. I'm like, well, like my timeline is so long, and there's been plenty of people in the groups that we're in on Facebook where they're just like, I've heard the horror stories, and to me it's a horror story where they're like, I was waiting on Apple to hit 93.10 a share, and this is, however many years ago, but 93.10 a share. It got down to 93.25 and I never bought any because I was stubborn onto that. And not only did they miss off of 15 cents per share that they could have, that was the difference that they were looking for off of this random number that they just came up with. But then so they missed off of 15 cents per share, and they also missed on the hundreds or thousands of percent gains since then. All because they wanted to wait for a certain number. And I'm just like, to me, that is so stupid.
Dude, Wall Street is full of stories like that, right? Of like, just one more dollar or a couple more days or just...
It's about to hit support. I'm like, it's about to hit resistance. I don't care. Like, what if it doesn't? And then the counter, like I said, there's always a counter argument to everything. The counter argument to that is there's plenty of other opportunities. There are, but you've taken the time to identify this opportunity, and then you just wasted that. So like there's three things that you can never get with money, and it's time, experience, and wisdom. Those three things, no matter how much money you have, you don't get any of those just by having money. Like you'll never get time back. And what you were talking about before with your experience and wisdom, that's the stuff that you need. And those are different. They're not that different, in at least when this quick thought I had, but like experience and wisdom, that's what makes the older person that you talk to, the 60, 70-year-old that you talk to, and they always have an answer for everything. It's because they have the experience and wisdom from doing it themselves or being around the block. Now, what they don't have anymore, they might have all the money in the world, but they don't have any more time. And no matter how much money they have, they can't get it back.
It was like Gandhi or somebody said something like that. Like it's amazing to me how man basically works his butt off to try to be able to buy back time in his later years. Mm-hmm. Or that story of like the fisherman. You've heard this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like build a business, get like 20 boats, and then you can sell it, and then you can retire. And it's like, or I can just go fishing for 10 minutes today.
Yeah.
Catch the fish and have the whole rest of the day to myself.
Yeah.
And that's literally like, I heard that and I was like, I'm never doing the traditional working thing ever again. And like brings me to where I am right now. Like I work from home. My kids are homeschooled. My wife, we're home all day together.
Yeah.
So like so full disclosure, I've gotten 2 hours of sleep since yesterday morning.
Wow.
I went to bed this morning at like 5:30 and I got up at 7:30 this morning. Make sure I was ready for this. I was up all night working because I love it. I love what I do.
Hey, for what it's worth, you look great.
Oh my God. I was hoping my hair was okay.
Yeah, there you go.
But my point is this is like I get to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I'm willing, and again with the same model, like right now, I get job offers for some pretty ridiculous offers right now. And I'm willing to forgo that front-loaded money right now, that salary, okay, for what I'm building right now with some partners and some other things that with some businesses we're acquiring. I've been through for the last, I don't even know, year and a half, minimal income, just enough. But I've had, okay, let me go back a little bit, okay? I went 5 years, Troy, without taking a day off, okay? I built a solar company from a laptop in my closet, okay, with a few bucks, okay, into this thing right here. One of the 500 fastest growing companies in America. And I did it without a single dime of outside money, okay? I don't have a college degree. I barely graduated trade school, but I worked like if you and I were going to work side by side, you would go to vacations, you would take time off, you would sleep. I worked 5 years in a row without a single day off. And I did it because I loved it. I was consumed by what I was building. And for the first 2 years, I mean, if you talk to my wife, we ate peanut butter relentlessly. We had the cable shut off for months. We had Pulp Fiction and like 2 other DVDs. We watched these things over and over and over and over again because we were building something and we knew it. So I'm absolutely the slow dime quick nickel. I'm all about the slow dime because I'm willing to forgo the income offers that I'm getting today for what I'm building, because again, I know where I'm going to be in 4 or 5 years is going to be 15 to 20x of where I was just a couple of years ago building this behemoth of a company. So like, that's a discipline, that's a patience, and you have to love, I'm going to swear, man, you have to love the shit. You have to love it a little bit, right? Because if you don't, you won't have the discipline to do it. And it's the same thing for someone. You're 27.
What am I? I just turned 29.
You're 20, dude. You're 29. You realize you're like an anomaly, right? Like there's so few people in their 20s going, yeah, man, dividends. Everybody your age worldwide is consumed by the GameStop theory of YOLO, man. The Reddit groups and everything else, and like the penny stocks, and like it's just not the way. And you cannot tell these people, look, man, I want you to go sleep on a concrete bed in a cold house with no heat, no electricity for 24 months. But if you do that, would you be willing to live the life that you want on your terms and control time? Because that, when we talk about buying time, you were just talking about, when you have wealth, and I'll give you an example. 2 guys want to go take their family on vacation to Disney World, okay? The wealthy guy and Johnny Blue Collar. Johnny Blue Collar goes to Florida when JetBlue or American Airlines or United, when they're going, that's when he's going, okay? Wealthy guy takes his kids. He wants to smoke a cigar in the airplane, eat whatever he wants. He calls and charters a plane, goes when he wants. In 60 minutes, man, it's wheels up. Get to the airport. We're going now, right? That is buying freedom. That comes with a sacrifice, unless you're a silver spoon guy. But again, like, you're building that now, slow and steady. You're 29, you're building a dividend portfolio. It's just going to keep growing and growing and doubling. And then like the compound interest gets ridiculous. By the time you're my age, you're going to be able to just be like, let's upgrade our house. I really don't want to do a mortgage though. Yeah. And I'm speaking from experience. I literally wrote a check for my house.
Yeah.
Like, because I lived before that, what you don't know is I lived in a house that cost 25 grand for 3 years. That had critters crawling all over it. The basement would get water in it every time it rained, right? I took a bedroom and I made it an office, poorly insulated. Heating bill was, I mean, the windows sucked. We lived in this house. Dude, it had asphalt shingles for siding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ugliest house you've ever seen. And we lived in it. And my wife, we did it. My kids, we all grew up in it. And you know what's funny is my kids aren't any like, oh, I'm so disappointed we live. They don't care. They're happy we're together. And I feel like people are missing that, right? So I'm afforded the time, because I'm willing to eat the shit.
Yeah. Well, that's what I try to, like, the wife's on board. I mean, a lot of people that I talk about, like, our story and what we're planning to do, like, I plan to retire early by 50. So like, and my idea is, and I've gotten this from talking to several people in my interviews, is like, I want to get to 110% of our monthly expenses to come from our dividend portfolio. And the reason I want 110% is because that's going to, one, it's going to account for like inflation and times, getting more expensive, but also I include in my expenses what we add to the portfolio every month. So what we're able to save. And so if I can get to 110% of that, I'm still growing my portportfolio and we're retired.
So listen, I know this is your show and you're supposed to ask me questions, right? But I'm going to ask you, how did you get started in this? And I'm feeling like your fans, I mean, is there something you haven't told your followers? Because you do realize you're a freak, right? Like you're an anomaly.
Yeah.
Like it's not people in their 20s doing dividends and getting excited about it is
Yeah.
not a normal thing, dude.
It's
How did you get into this?
It's weird. Like, I don't know. It's like I've told the story of how I got into specifically dividend investing, but like how I've gotten like the mindset is
That's
think
what I
it's
want to know.
It's like a combination of like the good things I was brought up with, and also like to me, I've told my cousin this a bunch of times because like he was the opposite. But like to me, when you're brought up either like, you know, in a very good household, you always have what you want, and it's kind of like they have to rein you back, and you're kind of like expect things to happen for you. In my household, my mom always liked working, but she liked working because she liked stuff. So she would work so she had money to buy stuff. And my dad worked, but he worked like different kinds of jobs, and he worked enough to pay the bills. So when I was growing up, there was always the, hey, we're going to the grocery store with $52.67. As soon as we get to whatever's on the conveyor belt and it goes over that, we have to put everything else back. So like when I was growing up, even when I became an adult, I was like, there's going to be times when I go to the grocery store and I was planning on spending 100 and I ended up spending 120. I'm like, it was a little bit more, but like, I'm never going to put anything back. And I like, that was one of the things. So I worked towards that. And then like now, well before I started investing, because before I invested, I was a saver. So I was just always like, okay, here's how much I need to keep in my checking account. Everything else, savings account. I built my savings account up to like 40K twice. So like, and this is like literally having like account, like literally that's awesome. Working at Toys R Us and just stuff like that, like regular people jobs. And I'm kicking myself. Like we were talking about earlier about like not getting started sooner. Had I had that same mindset, but did that with investing, I'd be way better off, but you can't change that. So like, it was just one of those things. Like I didn't want to grow up the same way that I didn't want to be an adult the same way I was a kid. And then like, as far as the emotions, I don't know, like the wife likes it and then doesn't like it. So it's really beneficial for investing, but it's not like she always thinks because like I am really logical in the way I do everything that like I'm hiding things or I'm not showing my emotions when something happens. I'm like, no, like when my dog dies or when my mom passed and stuff like that, like I was really emotional during those things, but like other things, I'm just like, yeah, okay. Like, that sucks. Like, I wish I honestly complained about things less because complaining just takes time from finding a solution. But like, I feel like sometimes you have to, you know, get some stuff off your chest and say, oh, this sucks. I hate doing this, or why can't everybody else do their job or whatever. So, but like at the end of the day, like what's the solution? And like, how do I get this thing that sucks to not happen again? Like it's kind of those things. So I don't know. And then the dividend story, the quick version is I started investing during 2020. I got a free stock from watching somebody on Robinhood. I used their link, got a free stock.
There it is.
My free stock was SiriusXM, and I remember one day I was just walking around doing something. My phone vibrated, and it said that SiriusXM paid you 1 penny in dividends, and I was like, why did they give me money, and what's a dividend? And then I just started literally. I told you I'm a why person rabbit hole, and I just went down the rabbit hole, and here we are.
So it's funny. You got that free stock. You got a little taste. It's what's funny is that's exactly what drug dealers do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think dividend investing is a drug because, like, listen, I mean, hey, they say that you don't want to do drugs because it's addicting, and then some people can like, oh, you know, I tried this back in the day, I tried this, and I didn't get addicted, whatever, it just wasn't for me. And then other people, they do it once and they're hooked. And like, as bad as that sounds, I did dividend investing once and I'm hooked. Like to me, life doesn't make sense without dividend investing.
And that's I can totally appreciate that because that's how I am about the entrepreneurship space. Like, if it's building something, I want to be in. And if it's a space that I'm familiar with, it's an industry I want to be in. Again, I start from no. You got to bring me to yes, but like investing is that one area where it's like, oh, okay, I'm kind of already in.
Yeah.
I can't hide it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and like that, like you said, that's gotten you burned a couple times, but then there's been more times, and obviously for good reason, there's been more times where it hasn't gotten you burned, and that's why you started.
No, look, when I pull back and I look at my life, okay, I can support my family pretty much with, I mean, I have no debt, right? Like, that's a free, if I want to pick up and move to wherever tomorrow, I can do that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting the fact that I have like business debt, but like the businesses take care of those things. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So when I look back on, you know, my scorecard, I am way up. Yeah, I absolutely took a couple of beatings, but show me somebody who has hit all their targets. I'm not going to say show me somebody who's wealthy. Show me somebody who's hit all their targets, okay, and had an easy ride. And then show me the people who have more difficult targets to acquire and hit, and they've taken bigger hits along the way. So it's really a conversation you need to have with yourself. And I feel like someone told me this when I was in my 20s. They basically said, okay, you're done screwing up now because your 20s were for partying, your 30s are to start applying what you've learned. And when I heard that, I was like, so you have to have that conversation with yourself, which is basically like, am I prepared to take a couple of beatings over my life to have a very difficult target to be hit? And even if I fail at my ridiculous target, even if I only get 60% of the way there, my great-great-grandchildren taken care of.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely willing to take that beating for my family's heritage. Unequivocally, yes, 10 out of 10, no hesitation, and I don't care. I mean, I spent 10 years as a fireman, so I've literally been in a house that exploded. So what are you going to threaten me with, man?
Yeah.
I'm willing to take that hit as many times as needed for my kids to see what I'm building, to show them that it's possible. Again, no college, no family money, none of that. My parents didn't graduate high school. I've been homeless, dude, living in a two-door 1996 Chevy Tahoe. To go from that to where we are right now, absolutely worth it. Every bit of it, and would do it again, will do it again. And the fact that now I get to show my family how it's done, and my kids can take that. I mean, I got 2 daughters and 2 sons. If there's going to be a guy that's going to come in and try to impress my daughters with something of flashy and short-term temporarily, they're going to see through it. So, that in itself has value. And I think when I look at, yourself, like, you're going to miss out on a lot of short-term money by not playing, buy the rumor, sell the news, right? And watching the headlines at 5 a.m. as they come up on the Associated Press and trying to get in the morning, that morning first 90 minutes of rush hour traffic, right? Of opening the market. The volume is off the charts. Yeah, you can do flip trades throughout the day. But long term, I've never met a billionaire day trader. Never seen one.
Yeah. I've seen millionaires, but not billionaires.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my point. Like, if you want that 3 commitment, it's just that. It's a commitment.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, it's just like I said, I think it was before the interview about like me tying my fitness into investing. Like, that's one thing that I'm able to pull back on. But like, okay, yeah, I would love to have $100,000 portfolio, but like, you have to, like you said, you have to start with your first step or start with your first dollar or whatever. And like, same thing with my deadlift. I went from deadlifting, the bar with with 135 to now I can pull 550 or whatever. So like, it all, you have to slowly add those plates over time. And same thing with your money, slowly add it over time. And eventually you're just, other people, I don't record my workouts because like, I'm not really cute. I say that as I have a YouTube channel, but like, I'm not really big on like social media as far as like caring what people think about my stuff.
Yeah.
But like, other people will record my workouts and put it on their Instagram. Like, that's what happens. And that, like, I want to be able to do that where like I tell the wife, I'm like, yeah, like, we have season tickets to the Thunder games. Like, I've been to like 230 something games in a row. Like, I've been to all, like, tons of those. So like, we do things and we make sure we have vacations for the family and like have experiences now, but we could do a lot more because we have a lot of disposable income. But I'm like, why would we not want to make it to 50? In her case, she'll be like 51 because she's like a year and a half older than me. But like, she'll be 51.
Oh, now you did it. She's gonna see this and you outed her, man. It's
I hope. Hey, at this point, I hope she gets mad at that because that means she watched my stuff. So I'll know. I'm gonna start doing that in every interview. Just throw a little jab in there. But
listen, she's gonna be 29 for at least 10 years. You
yeah,
know that,
yeah.
Okay.
What is it? They always say they're like 21 with 20 years of experience or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she has that, and then like I was telling her, I was like, we'll be 50, 51. All of our friends will still be working, wondering what we did, how we did it. We'll be able to do what we want, when we want, how we want. And then like, people will be asking us, like, then it's like, hey, you have the rest of your life. The kid will be, he'll be, grown enough to like do his own thing. and like I already have him a portfolio. He's already on my credit card. So like that was a thing that I did that not a lot of people like
Building his
know
credit.
to do. So Fidelity, I have a Fidelity credit card and Capital One credit cards. Fidelity said I think you have to be like 13 or 16, and they actually were confused when I asked them the question. But Capital One, as long as you have a Social Security card, you can
Yeah.
add them to the credit card. So he's been on
Now,
my
did you
credit card.
freeze it too?
Well, no, it's one so I don't really use my Capital One cards. I actually just called them and found out how long of inactivity you can have on your cards before they deactivate.
No. What I mean is a great trick, because with all of the card skimmers and everything else that's going on right there. So what's a great trick that I've learned is you do that for your kids. You open up like a credit card, whatever, right? But freeze their credit so that nobody, if they skim it, can't open up anything else in their name.
Well, yeah, no, he's not. He
He's still
doesn't have his
building.
own credit card. He's an
No, but he's
authorized
on
user
yours,
of mine.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and like I found out like how frequently I have to use it. And I actually put it on a sticky note on the card and be like, hey, you have to use this by February or it's going to deactivate. So, and like I'll just literally go, when I go to like 7-Eleven, I'll get like a Slurpee or something, put it on there and pay it off or whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, so like by the time he's 18, he'll have a custodial account with however much money in it that's been invested. And like over the course of time, I'm just like your dad did with you. I'm going to tell him like, hey buddy, like, let's look at your portfolio. This is what I'm buying. This is why I'm buying it. You see how this is paying you money and stuff like that. Yeah. And then like, if he turns, 13 and he gets his Christmas money or his birthday money, which is basically the same time, and he's like, hey dad, everybody in school's talking about this stock or this thing. I want to look into this stock and see if it's a good buy or whatever. I'll sit there with him and help him through that. And then like I said, 18, he'll have probably perfect credit, if not close to it. I know credit's stupid where you do one thing bad, it drops 100 points. You do 10 things great, it goes up a half a point. But but like he'll have this portfolio and hopefully the knowledge and understanding of like everything that we taught him. And if I retire at 50, maybe he can do it at 40 or whatever. If he can do whatever he wants to do and he can do it earlier, and hopefully he does the same thing for his kids, so his kids can do it even earlier, and we'll just go like that.
I gotta tell you, your parents should be proud. They did a good job on you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate.
They may not have showed you how to do all this, but like I talked with my wife, my parents didn't show me a lot of things, and when it comes to parenting, in fact, they showed me what not to do.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that was the thing. Yeah, it's sometimes it's what you show them, and sometimes it's what you show them not to do. So.
Yep.
Yeah, that was
Absolutely,
the thing.
Man.
Okay, so. Next question for you. So as the time of recording, this is December 30th. This won't come out until like I think the first week of January. But so this is a really good time to ask this question. So what are some of your short-term goals? Let's just say what are your 2024 goals with your dividend portfolio, and then what are your long-term goals? So let's just say like 5-10 years from now. Like what are your goals for that?
So this is actually good timing. So I was just talking about this, and what I want to do this year is I want to try something this year that I've never done, which is set something in where it's just automatically weekly injected in, and I don't even want to look at it because I'm not buying any new positions this year. I want to just keep injecting, and I'm not even going to look at it. Not until the end of the year.
Is this going to be a new account?
No, my existing account, just my dividends. Okay. I have 4 of them that I want to put it in, but I just Lockheed. I tell you what, I think Lockheed's going to be a good one. I think with all of the turmoil and geopolitical crap that's going on.
Yeah.
I think that the share price is going to go up, but from all the orders they're going to get. But I got to be honest. I think the dividend. I think the dividend. I think you're going to see a decent increase in 24 from them. That's like my prediction, whatever, if you want. But this year, I want to try to just have a set amount injected in consistently.
Did you figure out you said it's 4 companies? What are they, if you don't mind sharing?
Coke.
Okay.
I wanted to, Lockheed. I think Lockheed, like I said, Lockheed, I'll admit Lockheed's more of like a share price thing.
Yeah.
And then Raytheon.
Okay.
And so I have 2 that I still have AT&T. Because they did the split, right? They took off like the Time Warner or Discovery, whatever. Yeah. So like I'm kind of torn if I want to go back into AT&T because the reason I'm torn, I'll just say the truth. I'm wondering with the satellite phones and Starlink and everything else, what kind of demand are the cell phones who I mean, guy, it's 2024 in like 2 more minutes, right? Like, and there's still dead spots all over the place.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be a thing, not in this country,
Yeah.
right? So I'm wondering, with Starlink really getting up to speed, satellite phones coming online commercially, like by the numbers, I'm hesitant. I still want to do it just because I don't think it's immediate. I think this year might be the year to do it. But I feel like AT&T, being that dividend king, well, up until recently anyway, maybe the one that you have like a year or two left before it really starts to have they're going to have to get off of the pedestal of, well, this is what we've always done and it's always worked. Right.
Yeah.
And then I guess my fifth spot honorable mention would be realty income. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not huge on the REITs, especially with what's, the commercial market.
Yeah.
But I feel like,
well, the interest rates are coming down in 24, they say. So
yeah, they say, but at the same time, when the interest rates come down and there's either disinflation, deflation, and quite possibly, I don't know if you're a student of the 70s, but we are literally week to week on the same trajectory as what caused the ridiculous hyperinflation rates of the late 70s
that
at
was
Carter.
when Paul Volcker was the Fed chair.
Yeah. And then Reaganomics brought it down because people were at like 50 and 60% tax brackets, right? Yeah. Reaganomics brought it back down and started making sense of it again. But we're literally week to week as we go. And there are people, just showing data, unarguable data, that are showing that we are on that same path. So everybody's thinking two things. Oh, the interest rate's going to come down. The market's going to take off. And it's like, not really, right? When you look at consumer staples and discretionary consumer spending, when you look at the M2 money supply, okay, there is no more M2 money supply. Americans are basically broke. They can't afford groceries right now, let alone heating oil right now. Your utilities going up. Like, people think when the interest rates come down, the market's just going to shoot off, and so is real estate. If real estate does take off, I would be surprised, because people are going to say, yeah, I'm going to sell my house. It's worth only a couple of bucks more now at this point because everybody's refinanced and bought houses and got that 3% mortgage in the last 4 years. So you're going to sell a house that, yeah, you have more net equity, right? But now you had a 2.5%, 3.25%, 30-year mortgage at 3%. Are you nuts? Now, you're writing off 3% off in your personal taxes anyway if you got a mortgage, but now you have to disclose that, get rid of that, okay? Take and in 1031 into something else, or if it's a residence you've been in for 2 years out of the last 5, you can take up, there was a $500,000 married, tax-free, put it into another property. So yeah, you can buy that bigger house you wanting to afford. You get that corporate job, whatever, but your mortgage is still going to be at 6.5. Mm-hmm. You don't have PMI because you're taking your equity and putting it in, but you get higher taxes. The average car payment in this country is approaching $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
When you say that, $12,000 a year after tax money, so you got a Mr. and Mrs. America, whatever, right? Let's say they average, I live in Boston, so I'm jaded. I live near Boston, so I'm jaded, thinking the average couple household income is, $150,000. It's not. Like, nationally, it's about like 70, 80.
Yeah.
So somebody making $80,000 a year in a household income, even if it's 100, you take out your tax base, right? You take out your food, your heat and lights, things that you need, okay? Now you're going to go to a $12,000 a year pickup truck for 84 months.
Yeah.
At, again, 7, 8, 10% interest, even if you've got the 720 credit score. So people think real estate's going to take off. And it's like, how?
Yeah.
Because hedge funds aren't taking debt, right? They're not going to Wells Fargo and taking a 30-year note on a single family house. They're writing the check. They're buying it. So when BlackRock decides to buy 60,000 houses, that's what they do, right? They buy a portfolio. So I'm not quite sure and the people say interest rates are coming down. I don't think it's going to be nearly as good as everybody hopes and thinks and is telling themselves to be. Mind you this, Troy. It seemed every time in the last 5 times that Powell raised rates, the market was somehow baffled. Oh my God, we're going to raise rates more. And if you listen to every time he raised rates, he would say our next meeting, we're very open and likely to raise rates again.
Yeah.
He would give that speech, okay, at like 2:00 in the afternoon, okay? Then you'd have like Andrew Ross Sorkin and the guys at CNBC coming and going, I can't believe they're raising rates. The whole market was pricing in a lowering or just flatline. It's like the man himself said it less than 60 days ago at the last FOMC meeting.
Yeah.
They're going to raise rates. And here's all of Wall Street going, we're surprised he raised. So that same either ignorance or want to push the market in a direction will not be what forces people to suddenly have discretionary income again, disposable income. The M2 money supply is gone. 401ks are depleted.
Yeah.
People, I mean, you have now more than ever. Google this. You'll laugh. I'm making more than I ever have, and I'm broker than I've ever been, is a statement I bet you out of everybody you know, at least 10 to 15% of the people can vouch for that statement personally. Google it and see how many people feel that way.
Yeah.
This is not good. But we know what it is, though, Troy. It's an election year.
The worst part about that statement is, one, it's gross when you just break it down. But then the other part is, a lot of people I know that say that also aren't investors. Like they don't invest at all. Like we talked about before, like they're under the impression, retirement, I'll start thinking about that when I'm, 50s, 60s or whatever. And then it's not necessarily too late to think about it by then, but like you should have and
but
could
it is.
have. Yeah. Like you're just putting yourself behind the 8 ball, and like you have to add so much more per month to get the same results or worse results and stuff like that. So it's just one of those things. And it's not to say that like investors are elite. It's just it's the principle and like the mindset of an investor that goes into not having to say that statement that you just said. Is like, if you're able to invest, clearly you're living below your means because you're able to put money back. Therefore, you're not tight. If anything, it's like, oh, I used to invest $2,000 a month. Now I'm investing $1,900 a month. Like, that's your difference. Not, I used to have lights and now I don't have lights. Like, that's not the difference.
Right. And the problem is, right, when we look at 300,000 people a month coming across the border, right, which I'm all for a better life. But when I look at how that impacts the economics of this country, and then you have Newsom last night comes out and says free health care for every illegal immigrant, every illegal person in California starting January 1st. Free health care. I live in Massachusetts. Let me give you a story about here, okay? If I don't have health insurance in Massachusetts, if I go a year without it, I get penalized for it.
Yeah.
I got to pay a fine in my taxes. So we have the system being just burning a candle at both ends. We're sending billion-dollar checks, 10, 20, 30, 40 at a time overseas. We're being, influxed at a serious financial detriment while this is happening at the same time. And it's me and you who are going to be like paying for this with our taxes going up and everything else. And it's like, at what point can we not afford to do this anymore? Okay. There has to be some order given out at the top. And it doesn't seem, for the short term anyway, that it's going to happen. And guys like you and I are going to have to foot the bill.
Yeah.
Because let's be completely honest, right? It's not going to be the Gates and the Bezoses of the world. By the time they do their taxes, it's nilled down to nothing. It's deferred and it's pushed off. And I'm not knocking it because I do it too. But I'm just saying when I can. But I'm just saying at some point, somebody's got to pay for this.
Yeah. Well, that's what, like, my dad's really big into politics and stuff. And like, to me, like you were saying before, to me, I don't follow politics at all because like the odds of me influencing any of the decisions is slim to none, basically none. So like my idea, and this is what all the wealthy people do, is they just figure out the way to maneuver through the new whatever.
Well, that's why what you're saying is the only reason why I give an about politics.
Yeah.
It's not to have debates.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Somebody says, this is purple. You know what, dude? It's purple. It's purple all day for you. I'm not going to argue because you think, look, I don't have the time. I value mine more than I value yours. So you want to think it's purple? That's fine. I don't do it for the negotiating or like trying to teach me things. I do it because how can I put my family in a better position? Like, I'll give you an example. If we go to war with China over Taiwan, and I don't know the full scope of it, and I don't know when Taiwan became whatever it is, okay? I don't get that big, obviously. But I do want to know if that happens, you can bet your ass Raytheon stock, RTX, is going to click up.
Yeah.
Right? And this could be a 3, 5, 10-year thing because you have the two largest financial superpowers potentially going to war. It's not going to last a couple of months. Mm-hmm. It's going to last several years.
Yeah.
So how do I take advantage of that? Lockheed, RTX, companies that do radar, like that's what I want to start looking at. What company is kind of under the radar that pays a great solid dividend that I've never heard about because it's not always on CNBC and because it's not held by 6,000 institution, right? And the guys wrote, what is there something I can find there, right? And that's why I follow politics. It's because I want to learn to either benefit from it financially or avoid it and not invest in it.
And that's what it is. And like as far as the as far as the kicking the can down the road, like that's literally like all they're doing in office or in any position of power is literally, if I push this down the road long enough, I won't be in office to handle it. It's the next guy's problem or next girl's problem or whoever it is. And like they just like, it's not, they are in a position where it doesn't impact them. It impacts us. And I don't know. I talk to my dad about it all the time. I'm like, they'll say whatever they got to do to get your vote, but there's so much money going into their campaigns that by the time they get into wherever they're going, they can't do what they wanted to do anyway because they owe so many companies and corporations favors that they literally, their hands are tied. They're like, oh, big pharma, the all the food industries and stuff like that. I can't do anything I wanted to do anyway because I have to pay back all these favors.
Troy, the greatest single stock picker I've ever seen in my life. It's not Carl Icahn. It's not Warren Buffett. It's Nancy Pelosi.
Oh yeah. She just knows all this stuff ahead of time.
It's Tommy Tuberville. It's Congress. When you look at like what you and I have done for the year, what the S&P's done for the year, what Congress has done, it's like you can't even begin to make a logical argument of like clearly y'all know something's up.
Hey, we need to make a Congress ETF. And it just
somebody should get like the inverse Kramer thing, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
I love how it's just a crushing market. Somebody should make a Pelosi one.
Yeah.
And somebody needs to draw attention to it, but I digress.
Yeah. Okay. So what are your that was your short-term goals. I personally, like, I know you didn't ask, but here's my opinion. I personally don't like, I don't like anything in the communication services sector. I don't own anything in there. I just think that the cost to constantly upgrade the equipment from 4G, 5G, 6G, whatever's going to come next, they're never going to not spend money. So, for example, here's my easiest thing.
AT&T and for tax purposes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So AT&T and Verizon have significantly underperformed the S&P 500 over the past however many years you want to look. Yep. T-Mobile, which Sprint, T-Mobile, it's all the same company now. T-Mobile, they were outperforming the market over the last however many years you want to look back. They weren't paying a dividend. They just initiated a dividend this year. I'm curious to see what they do over the next 10, because are they going to, do they have a better model, better ideas and stuff like that than T-Mobile or not T-Mobile, AT&T and Verizon? And are they going to continue to outperform? Or because now they're in the same boat as far as upgrading towers and stuff like that. Like there's no more acquisitions to do. Like you have your smaller ones, your Metro PCS and Mint Mobile and stuff like that. But like the big boys are all together now. So like
the Federal Trade Commission won't allow anybody else to.
Yeah. You're not gonna, like, AT&T's not gonna be able to buy Mint Mobile and stuff like that. Like there has to be some competition in there. So I'm really curious with that. Like the one I like the most is T-Mobile, because they have outperformed the market, and that's my goal. Is like, why would I buy all these stocks that don't outperform when my goal is to make the most money? So yeah, I'm really curious. T-Mobile next 10 years, I want to see if they can actually continue to outperform, or if they're just going to fall into the same thing that Verizon, AT&T did. Those, and I don't own any. I think it's real estate in my taxable account. I own VNQ in my Roth IRA because it's tax deferred. and like real estate income counts as regular
Yep.
income and stuff like that. So, yeah, but it's just that kind of stuff. So like, what are your, now that my soapbox is done, what are your long-term goals? Like in the next 5-10 years, what do you hope to get out of your dividend portfolio?
I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like with the projection that I personally am on, as far as doing leverage buyouts and acquisitions of businesses and companies and stuff, um, the dividends, if I do this correctly, right, if I execute my targets here, my dividends, my whole investment, what I'd really like to do with it, and I should know in the next 48 months if I can do this or not. But if I'm talking a 5 or 10 year period, Troy, I'm thinking it may be something where if I can set up a foundation, and at that point, some of my children will be old enough to, with 10 years, they're going to be out of school, right? So what I'd really like to do is set up some kind of a foundation with my wife. And if I could use that or a portion of it as seed money to do something, because my wife and I we're not a religious family, but I do believe in a lot of the great things and great people I've had in my life have come at the darkest moments, and it's because, like, when I look at how much, like, my wife and I, we bought a motorized wheelchair for a little girl. I mean, those things are outrageously expensive. We did one of those for a young girl. Like, as much as making money is fun, I'm going to say this honestly, helping people with it that can't help themselves feels, and again, I'm not religious, but it feels angelic. And if you, and I'm not talking about, giving $50 at Christmas time for somebody at the church, or I'm talking about being able to effectively change someone's life. You want to talk about some addictive things like investing and whatnot. That's addicting. Being able to, have the fire department, like I said, I was a fireman for 10 years. Being able to donate money to the fire department so they can buy some equipment to maybe save a life. Like, yeah, that, and again, I've got my kids watching me during all this. So imagine the euphoric feeling of being able to teach them two things. One, you can have a great life off of investing in the market and real estate. Break those up, use possibly the dividends to fund like I don't want to call it a charity, but like an organization, to have a mission statement of just find one family every year, put the financial means, and hire people to bring them in and show them what they've been doing wrong all of their life financially. Hold them by the hand, not just, here's what you're doing wrong, here's how to fix it, and then walk away. Like, that's what Dave Ramsey does. You can get that on YouTube all day. But imagine being able to pay somebody's salary, right? To be able to sit with, a couple of families at a given time and help them. The whole teach a man to fish, he can eat for a day, whatever. But like, give a man a fish, he can eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, if you like. Imagine being able to do it financially. So the real estate, the investments in the market, and then the LBO and entrepreneurial side. If I'm able to take one of these things, and it's most likely going to be the dividend side, to do this, then I'll tell you what, out of everything in my life, I will go to my grave a very peaceful man, and I will consider my life a massive success if I can help some families, some hardworking families, be able to transform their entire life just because I've been able to put up eat the crap and have the discipline to do it. That's my long-term goal. Is to not even need it, Troy, to be able to help others with it. Yeah. And I honestly feel like there is some kind of like spiritual thing where, because that's the goal, it's why I'm doing better than most. I feel like that.
Yeah. I relate to a lot of that, because like I'm not the wife's religious and her family's really religious. I'm not really religious. Like I always think like there's like karma and fate are two things that I just believe in, which just drives me to do like I try to do good things. Now I don't do that all the time. Like sometimes I'm rude or whatever, but like for the most part, like
Of course,
whether
you're
it's
human.
somebody like even in like investing, I see somebody talking about whatever on Facebook or whatever, like I'm like, hey, I don't think that's a good idea, but best of luck to you. I hope it works out. I hope you make lots of money. Because that's the cool thing about investing is like, just because you made $1 doesn't mean that there was only $1 to be made. I can also make $1.
Yes.
Like that's like
Yes.
you can do it. Everybody can win. And obviously you have to have losers in the stock market, but like, sometimes that's the big whales, losing a couple $1 billion on GameStop or something. And then we make the money, whatever. But yeah. And then like as far as like having the money to do those extra things, like I was talking about before, like if I get to the point, so my plan, like the actual blueprint is get to 50, be able to make 110% of our expenses from the dividend portfolio. Therefore, we're still contributing to the portfolio. It's still growing. We're still saving
growing,
money.
right.
Yeah, and it's just snowballing while we're already retired. Then once you get to 59 and a half, both the wife and I will have access to our 401ks and our retirement account, our Roth IRA, tax, like, not without penalty. Yep. And then we're going to late draw on Social Security. So I call it like the horseman approach. Like every 9 to 10 years, there's going to be another reinforcement. Not only were we already able to live from 50 to 59 and a half without any of these reinforcements, but here they come anyway. And then once you get to 59 and a half and then you go to like 67 or whatever it is, here come more reinforcements that you didn't need 10 years ago, or in that case, 17 years ago. You didn't need them, but here they are anyway.
Oh, you mean you're not depending on Social Security?
No, and that's the thing. Like I want to do a video on that too, as far as like,
I say it laughing.
Yeah, like it's just one of those things like that. That is the end goal for people. It's like, oh, I just know that when you get old, you just like the government gives you money and then you just live off of that. And then, what you do is you call a bunch of utility companies and say, I want a fixed income. And you think they're supposed to care about what you like your bad decisions. Like that's not how it works. I'm like, you have to plan for yourself. So like that's
it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is how it works. That's not how it should work. Yeah. So like it's one of those things. And like when I'm 67, that's freaking, I don't know, math. That's some years from now. Like they say Social Security isn't going anywhere, but isn't it? Like,
I have an interesting outtake, and you can dissect this if you want, but I have a theory that the reason you can't discharge student loan debt, college debt, I believe that Sally Mae and college loans, okay, are actually the Ponzi scheme that are paying for today's Social Security. I believe the Social Security war chest has already been pissed through. I believe it's gone. I think the reason college students today cannot discharge student loan debt, and the reason why no president or Congress has ever been able to seem to get rid of this thing, and it would get everybody 1 million votes instantly, like, why will they not? They talk about it, they hint about it, just like Congress not trading stocks. They'll never actually do it, but they're always going to bring it up every 2 and 4 years, right? I believe that our Social Security is funded by the next generation's college, and it's why the government is so incentivized to push college. When you think about it, colleges don't pay taxes. So why does the government really care? They have a vested interest. That's a theory. I could be way off base on it, tinfoil hat time, but nonetheless, you're right. You want to laugh, Troy. Look at this. Google this thing. This will make you scared but laugh at the same time. Google how many people think they're going to hit the lottery for their retirement.
I don't.
The number is overwhelming. It's alarming how many people think they're going to hit the lottery, and that's going to be their retirement.
Don't you have a better chance to get hit by the lottery, whatever the lottery is? Like,
but I got a better chance of my hair showing up tomorrow morning.
Like you have a better chance of writing the word lottery on a lightning bolt and then getting struck by that lightning bolt. Like that's like
it's just not, Yeah, I have a better chance of growing 3 inches and getting all my hair back tomorrow morning than that happening, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that's another FOMO thing. Is like I see, like, I like watching HGTV and like I like the lottery dream home and stuff like this. And like you get large sums of money and like my dad and I will talk, like he'll ride, you'll ride by the billboard and he'll say, lottery's at 900 and whatever. And like every time that happens, oh, I think I'm going to go play. Like, I don't do this. This is what other people say. Oh, I think I'm going to go play. If I won this, I would do this and I would give you some of this and whatever. And I'm just like, okay, if I'm going to play the ifs, ands, and buts game, if I won the lottery, literally put it in the S&P 500, you're going to get a 1.6% dividend yield, a year-over-year 8 to 12% return, and 1.6% dividend yield annually on $900 million. I was like, you don't even need to know how to spell money for the rest of your life.
Correct.
Like, you're
But
done. You won. You won. Your kids won. Your kids won. Like, everybody wins.
You know what, though? The lottery is, you know what it really is? It's a taxation on the lower income people.
Yeah.
Wealthy people, not all, but the vast majority of wealthy people, self-made people, don't buy lottery tickets or the lotto or any of that. They don't.
I wonder what, rest in peace, Charlie Munger, but I wonder what would happen if you ask Charlie Munger or Warren Buffett the last time they bought a lottery ticket. Charlie Munger's response would have been legendary.
He probably would have yelled at you for asking that.
He would have threw some C's candy at you, like, "What are you? Get out of this! How
He
you
would
get
have
in here?"
thrown something at you, grounded you, told you to go to your room,
Yeah.
got mad, and then answered.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, you know, I mean, you must know some wealthy people, right? And none of them, not one of them that I know, plays the lottery.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the emotion, the hope. Like, it's like, oh, I get to get out of all the problems I've ever done instantly with this $1 ticket. Like, I don't know. And the craziest thing is,
It's taxation.
as it gets more and more valuable, causing more and more people to play, your odds get lower and lower. That's like literally like the tug of war on it. People are like, "Oh, I'm not gonna play. It's only 135 million. I'm not gonna play." But once it gets 988 million, I'm definitely gonna play. I'm like, yeah, so is everybody else.
Yeah,
so
you're right. You have a better chance of going to play the $3 million lottery and hitting it.
Yeah, which is already not gonna happen, but you have a better chance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're still going to collect like $10, but
yeah. But your theory on the student, because like I've always wondered, like, so that's gonna bring up a very going back to, is it going to be available when I'm older? There's already like the Google certificate program and stuff like that, and it seems like companies now are valuing less the college education, because I know 80s, 90s, 2000s, like college education was the thing. So like in 20 years is college, like I told the wife, our plan for our kid, like I don't know if we're going to homeschool or not, it depends, but we're going to look into that. And then for high school, I don't want him to go to a high school, I want him to go to a trade school. And it's going to be
that's where I went.
Yeah, it's going to be the backup plan. If he wants to do anything else, he can do whatever he wants to do. But your fallback plan is you're going to be an electrician, a plumber, something HVAC, like whatever it's going to be. And if you can't find job, or if you can't find whatever, you can always find a friend that's like, "Hey, I need you to come look out, my sink's leaking. I'll give you $500. That's enough money that you can make ends meet."
So as someone in that space, someone in that industry, it's impossible for you to know how right you are. Okay. I'm going to paint a very real picture for you. Okay. Now to give your followers my background. Okay. I wrote this book. Okay.
Hold it up.
Unfuck your contract. Can you see it?
There you
go. Unfuck your contracting business. Okay. It's a book written for contractors. Okay. A piece of the book is also about what we're talking about right now, which is the 5 to 10 to 20 years from now. Okay. Because I want to paint a picture for just all of your followers. If you want to invest in something, look at something like Ferguson, which is plumbing fixtures. Okay. Let's do some math. Let's say it's 2036. You and the missus are having some friends over. You know, your child's a little older. They're at the teenage years, whatever. Okay. You're about to have a party. You're going to have some friends over. Okay. Your toilet won't stop running, and now it's leaking onto the floor. You call a plumber. Now it's 2036. Okay. It's not today. Inflation's going on. Everything's going crazy. Okay. There's a lot of AI. There's a lot of people work from home. But now you call the plumber. He's going to tell you this. Okay. In another 12 to 13 years. He's going to say, okay, it's $1,000 for me to come out because it's after 5 p.m. on a Friday. Okay. And it's going to be a minimum of 2 hours when I get there. He's going to take off your toilet, replace your wax ring, put it back on. He's going to be at your house for about 12 friggin' minutes. It's going to take him longer to drive to your house and drive back. Okay. He's going to, and the hourly rate, then, okay, it's going to be somewhere around $400 to $500 an hour, okay? Because where I live, okay, for a plumber to come out to my house, okay, it's about $170 an hour, right? And I understand I live in an affluent area of the country. I get it. From Boston to DC, there's an insane amount of wealth there. I get it. But, even if we nationalize
You mean Nancy Pelosi lives
oh,
there?
God. But no, the plumber is going to say it's a 2-hour minimum. So boom, there's $1,000 and he charged you $1,000 travel fee. You just paid $2,000 for his travel. That he stopped and got a soda on the way there, a grinder or whatever. He's on your dime, but he's on his time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he's going to do his thing. He's going to take your credit card info. He may even get paid ahead of time. He's going to go back home and he's going to go, I just made $2,000. I've been out of the house for 94 minutes.
Yeah.
And he made $2,000. Meanwhile, okay, the people going to school for AI and technology and software and nursing and everything else. And these are all things we need to have. I'm not knocking them by any means. But I made a statement on my YouTube channel when I had the solar company, whatever. I had a CEO channel, which was basically talking to other CEOs. I made a statement that in like less than 20 years, plumbers, electricians, HVAC guys, welders, masons, carpenters are going to be making more money than doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't have the $400,000 in student loan debt to cover.
Yep.
They won't have the $70,000 a year malpractice insurance. They're going to get out of high school, go work for a guy like me, or a guy or a business that I own, okay, and work for that guy, okay. They're going to do that for about 3 or 4 years. Then go out on their own. They don't need seed money because you need a pickup truck and the tools that you've already had to have to do the trade. So you don't need seed money to start. You don't need a college education. You've been getting paid while training, which is completely different than college, which is you pay to go.
Mm-hmm.
And these people at 22 and 23 years old on a 40-hour income are going to make $300,000 and $400,000 a year in 15 years from now. You mark my words, that is what's going to happen. And the reason is because for every 7 people, and I've got the numbers, I've done the research, this is my area. Every 7 people that retire in the trades, 1 comes in. So the supply and demand is going to be ridiculous in 15 years from now, unless we start pushing vocational schools. So you want your son or daughter to have financial freedom? Learn to play with poop pipes, right, and air conditioning, and cut the grass and for communities and whatnot. I'm telling you, the landscapers and the welders and the masons are going to be the ones who are independently wealthy. They're going to work 12, 15 years for someone, Troy. They're not even going to have to start their own plumbing company. They're going to work for someone. I mean, a prevailing wage electrician in Boston, hell, an elevator mechanic makes over $100 an hour. How many people make $100 an hour? They can go to college.
Yeah, no, not me. I wish.
None. Right?
Unless
they own a business.
Yeah.
Right? So this is where it's going. By you saying like, oh, I'm going to send my kid to vocational school, you are dialed in on what's happening. You're never going to have to worry about your children taking care of themselves. Never, because the work will always be there.
I'm glad you said all that. So Dak, if you're watching this 10 years from now, just know I'm right. So like, yeah, he's like, and it might not even be something. I'll just be like, okay, which one of these do you hate the least, or which one do you find the most fascination with? Like at the end of the day, I'm not forcing him to be in that field.
Right.
I want him to have those skills, because if he wants to do something in tech, or he wants to do robotics, or whatever he wants to do, that's fine. I'm not paying for your college. I have you in a custodial account. I had you a perfect credit score. It's what you do with it. Pay for your own school if you want to do it. Because I don't believe in college in general. Just as far as like, to me, when I got out of high school, I was like, okay, I understand that the world is a bunch of pyramids, like not physical pyramid, also that, but like literal like pyramids that you go through. I'm like, okay, I went through the pyramid of schooling, your general school from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade, and then I'm like, okay, from here, I either start another pyramid in the corporate world, or I start another pyramid in college, and then I work to the tops of those eventually, or wherever I want to settle in those.
Yep.
And I was like, what's the difference between me starting my pyramid as soon as I get out of school into a career or into a job in general? Because they always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. So I can build up 4 years worth of relationships, have no debt, and just keep learning on the way. And in the meantime, Joe Bob was over here in school getting $170,000 in debt. He doesn't have any relationships with anybody in the field because he was just in a classroom for the last 4 years.
Yep.
So like
At
that was
10%
my
interest.
mindset. So I'm just enhancing that for him, for my son, where I'm just gonna be like, okay, you don't do that. Let's in high school. So you're gonna start your pyramid 4 years earlier than I did because you're gonna go from 9th grade to 12th doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, plumbing, electric, whatever it is. And like selfishly, like as I need him, I'm like, hey, Dak, you know how to do electrical? Come over here and hook me. I want this outlet over here now. But just stuff like that. And it'll be one of those things where like, if he wants to do robotics and like say he gets laid off or whatever, he's not going to have to worry about like, is he going to be able to pay his bills? He can just hit up his friend. He's like, hey, do you have like, I know you had that electrical project you wanted to work on. Like, you still need that done. He's like, yeah, I do. I'll give you $1,000. Cool. Here's $1,000 for a weekend's worth of work. Now you can make ends meet. Like, it's just the fallback plan is going to be a trade because those aren't going anywhere.
Dude, it's just like we're living in the pilgrim age all over again. And it's like, when you look, okay, at this country, when the wealth gap gets to be ridiculous and everything else, okay, there's a massive correction. And it brings us back to basics, fundamentals, and logic, okay?
Yeah.
We are at that precipice where we have to go back.
Yeah.
We're here. So,
well,
yeah.
I think I brought this up in another interview. I'm curious your thoughts on it. This interview's been not really dividend related, but I think it's really cool. So, so my thought behind that, like the reset, I think that happens. And I think that happens from in family, like trees as well, to the point where like, so
Agreed.
For example, so like my mom and my dad weren't poor by any stretch, but like they were the average American. Like they spent money or they made money to spend money, stuff like that. I go in, I'm a saver and investor to have money to be able to retire early and stuff like that. In theory, my kid will be better than I was, and hopefully his kid is better. But eventually, all that does is creates an entitled person who thinks that everything is given to them. Therefore, they don't work, they don't have hard work ethic, and they reset the cycle. They become bums, they live off the government, stuff like that. And then you literally have to run the cycle all over again. That's what I've thought like for the last like 10 years.
Well, that's that saying is like, strong men create good times, good men create good time. Create, the saying, like strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. And it's like, man, we're living through that right now.
Yeah. And I mean, like the worst part is like, it's I don't want to say it's unavoidable because it can be prevented.
It really is though.
And it's not even really prevented. It's just prolonged. Like you can make it to where, okay, there was 3 or 4 generations of very successful people, but then like, who's to say my kids even know who I am? YouTube doesn't exist anymore. Like they just, everything's streamed directly to their brain, whatever. They're just watching TikTok for 47 hours a day and like whatever's happening. And then like, they don't get the same things that are going on with my kids or my kids' or whoever. And then like, they just have to, I'm going to figure it out my own, and they don't do anything and whatever. So, and obviously the world will look a lot different 100 years from now than it did now. And then it looks a lot different now than it did 100 years ago. But, it's one of those things I've just always thought about, like, okay, I like seeing like a timeline. Like I think every family has a timeline, and they're like, okay, you are here. And it's not even really a timeline. It's a circle. So it's like, okay, you're here in this circle, and it like, okay, if you follow this right, the next 1-2 generations should be around here. But then after that, I mean, I'm not going to be here to see it. Who cares? But like after that, it's like, okay, like let's see how long we can keep this circle from turning. But eventually, it's going to turn and come back down. So that's I've just thought of that, and it's always been interesting to me. And I'm like, all right, well, at least it's not going to be me, and it's not going to be my kid. So like after that, we'll see what happens. But okay, so. I'm skipping around some questions because like we've just either answered them or it's not good for our conversation or whatever. But I am curious because you've been investing since 2000, and you said in your message to me earlier that you've been doing dividend investing really hard since you said 12, I think.
Dividends?
Yeah, so
dividends been right along.
No. So
I initially got into the whole idea of like chasing the tech, but I've always been kicking something. Minuscule amounts. I've always been kicking to dividends.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know where I read that from then. Okay. So the question is going to be like, we know dividend investing is a long game. We already talked about, quick nickel versus slow dime. So like, what accomplishments have you recently gotten in your dividend portfolio, and like milestones have you recently reached? And then what roles do those play in keeping you motivated?
So I'm gonna be honest with you. I really haven't been. This is where I myself kind of, how do I say this? I am far more seduced, I guess is the way I want to say, okay, by the entrepreneurial bug. Dividend investing for me at this point is like just autopilot. As I said, this year, it's mostly just going to be a just invest blindly, keep plugging away, right? So as far as like monumental places I finally reached, I have it. Like my goals are ridiculous. Like I don't get to speak to, and it's the reason why most of my friends and whatnot are investors or business owners, because there is a very real moment when you realize the conversations you have, the numbers you speak about, you most likely cannot speak with other people because they think you're bragging, or they think like, I'll give you an example. Okay. Yeah, I'll bring it back to this. Do you remember there was a show on MTV called My Sweet 16, where it was like, my dad's like an attorney for Sony, and like he's gonna spend $300,000 my birthday, and he's gonna invite like Jay-Z to come out. Like,
Yeah.
and most people watch that and think, holy crap, what a waste of money that is.
Yeah.
But what people don't realize is when you make tens of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, I wouldn't say like money's not real, because it is very real. It's just you look at it completely different. Okay. So, and I'll give you an example. When you're a business owner and you tell somebody like, yeah, I spent 70 grand this morning on some materials. You just told somebody you spent their entire salary that they're going to have to sweat and work hard for every day for the next 365. And you blew it before 8:30 this morning.
Yeah.
So my goals, Troy, for dividends, it's a minimum of a 2 comma conversation. I'm nowhere near that right now on that, but it is absolutely like, and part of the reason I love the entrepreneurial side is because, again, on a successful exit, I'll be able to take 300-400 grand, dump it in there, right? That's like a cheat code for me. That's not for everybody, I know, because this is just what I happen to do. Right. My passion, my drive, the reason I worked I stayed up till 5 a.m. I stayed up till 5 a.m. because I was working on one of the websites and one of the ventures we're doing. Like, I'm driven by that. So for me, recent goals, no, I don't have any. Like, my goals aren't going to be anytime in the future, I guess is my answer to you.
Yeah.
I haven't really hit any major milestones as far as dividends, and I likely won't for quite a while again. And I'm not in a hurry, right?
Yeah.
It's why I do the dividend. It's why I don't do the Apple plays and the hot tech startups. I don't do them because it's not my space. I don't know it. I'm gonna lose money. There are people at it who are way better than me. I don't do the whole follow the Reddit group.
Yeah.
I do the slow, boring stuff in that regard, and that's where I guess I kind of shut it off. I personally just look at investing in the dividend as this is the one place I can park money, and I don't really have to do all of the drilling and researching so much. It's kind of like more like a Warren Buffett method, which is like, I'm going to keep this for like 10 years. Like, do I think, would I want to invest in a newspaper company? Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
with everything going online, there's no long term, right? So it's real simple questions for me. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. I like death. I like, if I could invest in Bates Casket Company, I would totally do that, because it's such a boring business, right? But it's not going to be replaced with an app. AI is not going to take over caskets, right? Like Stonemore Partners, right? For a while, they had a ridiculous dividend. It was a $10 stock with $1 dividend. I was loving life. I know it's not sustainable, right? But like, yeah, I'm gonna be in that. I'm gonna take it out, because like this is not gonna be a long-term play. I'm already out of it. But like, that was a 3-year run I had. It was decent. So it was my traditional 5 to 10 year trajectory. But I knew it. But again, I don't have to put a lot of research into that, right? This is why I love conversations with folks like yourself. And it's often why people like you and me stay connected for 20, 30 years. I might call you in 9 months, Troy, and say, hey, listen, I'm thinking about putting 100 grand into this for the next 5 years. What do you done the research on this? What do you think about it? Right? Which is like, when it's like business, right? If you're great at something and you suck at something else, become a partner with somebody who's great at what you suck at.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. Well, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, which is the network, right? Which is like, again, I'm not going to study these stocks. I'm not. I don't have the time. It's not my passion. I'm going to be put to sleep. But can I build a roofing company in, say, Arkansas, okay? Or let's say Phoenix. Can I, on January 1, build a roofing business, a residential home roofing business, okay? On January 1, put 20 grand into account, buy the leads, get the subcontractors, get the insurance, EIN, all that set up, okay? Can I sell that roofing company in December for 600 grand gross profit and walk away after fees at about 285,000? Yeah, I can do that 9 times out of 10. And I can do it in multiple cities at the same time. So I'd rather focus all of it on that, knowing at the end of the year it's payday.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to take that, and instead of paying taxes on it, park it somewhere else, and reach out to my friends and be like, hey, man, I'm out of the game. I'm in it, but I'm not in it on the up and up of what's going on. Help me out. Yeah. That's how I do my dividends. It's probably, a really unorthodox way of doing it, not very common. But it's what works for me, So I personally haven't hit any recent goals is my answer, but like long term, I'll tell you my long term. My long term goal, okay, is to produce $300,000 a year at a minimum from my dividends.
That'd be pretty cool.
It's a high number. It's and as you know, with percentages, that's a lot invested. But again, and you know this, right? So like if you have a lot in, I can borrow against tax-free. I can use debt to leverage and leapfrog.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of selling the positions, at that point, because you have that kind of a nest egg, you sell your position and then go buy something. Now you're paying taxes on it. Or I can just go and say, hey, listen, I've got, $4.5 million in this account. I'd like to borrow 200 grand against my account. Yeah, so pay me the fee, which I'm going to write off an interest, okay? And I don't pay any taxes on the few hundred grand that I'm taking out to buy a boat, a lake house, whatever the hell it is. I don't know. But the point is, I'm not paying taxes on it because I didn't sell anything in my position. I still have a position, and now I have this too. And if I take it and go buy a couple of 10-unit apartment buildings.
I was just going to say that. I was like, you could
leverage
FOMO. That and then get therefore you don't have like a mortgage on the apartment buildings. Therefore the return on investments, high.
Imagine if we took 2 months and taught seniors in high school this, the last 2 months they were in school, right before they left. Imagine if we taught for 2 months, we taught seniors how to do this. The whole country would be rich in 100 years.
Well, that's what, like, again, tinfoil hat, like, I'm wondering why, like, there has to be a reason that's not taught. Because it's not rocket surgery. Like, everybody can figure it out. It's just, why isn't it?
So you take out those who never actually grasp it, those who have habits, addictions, or whatnot. Okay, you cipher those out. Let's say that's 5 or 10%. You take out another 15 to 20% of people who can never actually scrape money together because woe is me, this happened, my car broke, I don't make enough, whatever. Okay, now you break down to the elderly who don't need the income, children, everything else. Okay, you're left with about half the country. Half the country could benefit from this. That half the country could successfully take care of financially, healthcare, everything else, okay? The other half. Instead of having to go chase Elon Musk is evil because he's a billionaire. And it's like, yeah, him and Jeff Bezos single-handedly employ over 3 million people, all of which pay taxes. So when you piss off a guy like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and they're like, you know what? I don't need this. I'm going to go to Canada or some other country, or Bali or wherever I'm going to go, okay? Dubai, tax-free. Okay. And when they go and they take their business with them, what are you left with then? And I'll paint you a picture. It's what happens is what happens in Connecticut. Connecticut is going to absolute hell, because they decided to punish millionaires. High sales tax, Massachusetts is just starting to do this. We just passed last year a 4% millionaires tax. If you make over $1 million a year, okay, you pay your tax rate up to, and then anything over the million, you pay an additional 4%. Now, because the average house price in Massachusetts is almost 700 grand, now they want to do, out toward Boston, it's over $1 million. Any house over $1 million, you got to pay like a 1.5% or 2% sales tax on it. What do you think that's going to do?
Yeah, cause people to not do that.
Well,
Yeah.
people don't need to stay. They can go, man. They're fluid. They go anywhere they want. They're liquid. They go. They come and go. They move. You know, California's getting. Look what's happening in California. Mass exodus in California because they have the mansion tax, the millionaire tax, 13% income tax. Like, here's a good one for you. Okay, when tax rates go from 10 to 13, broke and poor and middle class people say, well, it's only gone up 3%. Wealthy people say it went up 30%.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's a
that's how
percentage
it's
of,
looked at.
percentage of the original amount. Yeah.
There it is. Like, that's the difference. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, if you ever have to leave where you're at, I'm in Oklahoma. It's great out here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We're in Oklahoma. I've been there.
I'm in Oklahoma City. I've been here since 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've actually driven through Oklahoma to get to California.
The amount, I don't know, when was that? When did you drive through?
That would have been in 2009.
I guarantee you, if you drove through Oklahoma City now, you wouldn't even recognize it.
How so?
So the Devon Tower was built in 2008. That's the tallest building downtown. It's 51 stories.
Okay.
There's a new park called Scissortail Park, which is basically our version of Central Park. So it is literally like, I don't know, 10 city blocks going vertically. The top part is amphitheater, kids play, splash pads, stuff like that. The bottom part is the sports complex for basketball courts, racquetball courts, turf soccer fields, like all kinds of stuff down there. The new arena just got approved because we have a thing here which is really good. Well, I don't know if that doesn't make sense, but it's very good. So we do it's called the MAPS project, which probably stands for something. I'm just not from here. I don't know what it stands for, but it's a 1% or 1 cent sales tax that has been implemented since like 1993. And that money goes directly to the city that they use to build things for the city. So basically the convention center that we built downtown 2 years ago is now, so it's one of the largest convention centers in the United States. It's the largest and most expensive city-owned building in the United States that is it's debt-free because the city had enough money from the MAPS program to pay for it 100%. So the city owns it 100. There's no mortgage on it or anything. It's owned.
So you guys got a sports team like 4 or 5 years ago? Right?
Well, the Thunder came in 2008.
All right. So obviously I don't follow sports.
Yeah.
I work.
It's since then.
When that happened?
Yeah, since then. Yeah.
Yeah, when that happened, that must have caused an explosion because there's a city that's just waiting to be woken up.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you introduce.
I've only been I missed the first 8 years of that, but like they said, the downtown used to be like, oh, you'd go there to like go to Mahogany's, which is like a steakhouse or whatever, and then you'd like just go home. Now, like the nightlife, there's tons of hotels. Like we built a streetcar. You have the buildings that I just talked about. There's talk that they're going to be adding a new complex that's going to be a 134-story tower, which would be the second tallest building in the United States, behind the World Trade Center. Like I'm telling you, like the growth in Oklahoma, I think it's the third fastest growing city in the United States.
So I just heard I need to start looking at.
I promise you won't regret it. Yeah, I promise you. Also, after this interview, I'm going to talk to you about stuff that you do because I have questions. But
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely look at Oklahoma City. Cost of living. I'm from Pennsylvania. Like I'm born and raised in Harrisburg. So like I know the whole Northeast thing. Harrisburg is it is the most unnecessarily expensive place I've ever lived in my life. For example, so when we lived, the wife and I, at the time she was my girlfriend, we lived in Harrisburg. We moved out. We got our first apartment. Our apartment it's in a high rise. It wasn't that high. It was, I don't know, 20 stories, whatever. But it was a high rise. We were paying, it was a 500 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment. We were paying $736 a month for rent. We moved to Oklahoma in 2016. We got a 738 square foot apartment, 1-bedroom, for $500 a month. So it literally inversed.
Yeah.
And like gas is anywhere between 50 to 85 cents cheaper per gallon out here than
Yeah,
it is
I
in
didn't know.
Pennsylvania.
So when I drove across country, I noticed the Midwest, y'all's food price, fuel prices, excuse me, diesel too.
Yeah.
But I noticed when I was driving across in '09, I almost put the fuel that you guys have out there where your vehicles are acclimated for it, because it was like so much cheaper. I was like, oh, I'm gonna put some of that in my truck. Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, so when I first moved here, I noticed that on one of the, because On Q is like one of our big gas stations out here, and I noticed that they had a gas that was like dumb, like 59 cents. And I was like, I don't know what that means. It was blue. And I was like, I don't know what this is. It's CNG, compressed natural gas. And a lot of vehicles out here are actually getting converted to that, which is expensive from what I've heard to get your car converted to it. But like any car can get converted, other than like a Tesla, any car can get converted to that. And like it is dumb cheap. Like right now, I think it's like $1.29 a gallon, or however that's measured for the compressed natural gas. So like you can literally take a Ford F-350, get it converted for 10 grand to CNG, so it doesn't need diesel, and now it runs off of this, and now you're paying a quarter of what you would spend for gas on that same truck. Well, obviously you can do that everywhere else, but I didn't even, I've never even heard of compressed natural gas until I came out.
We in the Northeast, I don't know if you know this, but again, this is just from me just doing some research and trying to invest in some oil, because I love Chevron. I'm a holder.
Yeah.
But I didn't know this until this whole Russia thing happened with Ukraine, but apparently the Northeast is the largest purchaser of oil from Russia in America.
Well, they use it for heating up there too.
Well, I'm using it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that growing up. We always like, you'd be in the middle of winter and then, oh, why is it so cold in the house? I guess we ran out of oil. You got to get the big truck to come over and put it in and stuff like that. But yeah, that was I mean, we don't have that stuff out here. The one thing I did make as a requirement when we moved out here, because like my dad's house doesn't have central air. And in Pennsylvania, you know, where you're from, like, you know, you'll get some days in the 90s in the summer, you might touch 100 or whatever. In Oklahoma, we'll have 3-4 weeks in a row where it's 100 every day.
So one of the businesses that I work with is in Lubbock, Texas.
Yeah. Hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah. They had something like 30 days in a row where it was over 100. And I'm just like, I'm sweating for you, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't want to sound like this. So in Oklahoma, I can't speak to Texas, but in Oklahoma, our heat is really dry, which is helpful. Yeah. It's not like, you know, Florida 100 degrees, like everybody'd probably die there. But the thing about Oklahoma is it's really flat, or at least where I'm at. And so it's always windy. So when it's 110 with a heat index of 122 and it's windy, you just feel like you're in a microwave. Like it's just hot. Like it's just like great hot wind. This is great. Like you feel like you open the oven door. Like that's what it feels like when you walk outside. You're just like, this is stupid. Like it's I remember it wasn't this past summer. It was the summer before. I was walking the dogs one of the days where it was like really hot, because I'd walk them every day when I got home from work. And it was like 113, like the air temperature, not heat index. 113 was the air temperature. And then we had a cold front come in where it went down to like 102 the next day. Now it's a cold front. We had a cold front come in, and it felt so good outside the next day. I was like, oh, this feels great. I pulled out my phone. It said 102. I was like, that's weird that this feels like a 70-degree day in the fall. Like it was pretty wild. But okay, so let's get this close to wrapping up, because I do want to ask you those questions. So, okay, question I'm curious about. Do you have any specific criteria that you use when you're like pulling through the big pool of dividend stocks, like the ones that you're actually going to pull the trigger on? Do you have any specific criteria to narrow that down?
So there's a two-step process that I follow. One is, and I think I said it earlier, which is, you know, it is the industry, not the company, is the industry viable 10 years from now?
Okay.
Right. Is an app going to replace this kind of thing? Right. So that's like step one, because I feel like if it can't pass that test, why go any further?
Yeah.
And then like, I don't get into like who's management and everything else, because I think Buffett said it best, which is like, buy a business that can be run by an idiot. Because if you're going to hold it long enough, at some point it will be. And I'm like, man, that guy speaks some truth. Right. But so it's really about like the industry itself. Okay. And it's not even really for me about like the financials. It's about the purchase power that company has on their materials that they need, or their service, their purchasing power, right? Like, do they get a great ROI? Because, and again, I'm a real estate guy, right? This is what kind of like teases that, because you make money in real estate when you purchase the property, not when you sell it, which is what everybody thinks. If you bought it right, you can sell it almost game-changing numbers correctly every time, right? If you bought it right. But if you overpaid and just say, well, I'm going to hold on for 20 years and I get the appreciation. A lot of people made that same mistake in 2006 and tried to sell the house in 2014 and lost money, right? So it has an 8-year window to lose money on a house. So what I do is like purchasing power. Another thing that I like to look at is what's the revenue per employee? Because that tells me, again, you can replace the CEO. They're going to put a new one in. He can screw that up or she can screw that up. Sure. Okay. Most likely not going to want to, because they're going to want to keep their job for a couple of quarters. They can bounce off and go to a board at another company. But if I look at, let's say, like, I don't know, Bic pens, Fred's pens, and Jim's pens, is obviously they're all paying a dividend. So if the dividend's a little less, but the revenue per employee is better here, that means long-term sustainability. These guys can afford to keep raising the dividend because they've figured out something that the other two guys cannot, which is how to make more money per cost, right? Labor, cost of goods, your COGS and your labor are usually your two most expensive things whenever you run a business. So if your purchasing power, cost of goods, is great, dialed in, and your revenue per employee is dialed in and better than the other and everyone else in the industry, you've got a long-term success rate higher than anybody else in the industry. That's how I look at my dividends. I don't look for like the dividend because, as you know, and Boeing and everything else, like, can be turned off. Mm-hmm. I don't have preferred chairs. You know, I'm not that guy, right? Yeah. I don't walk on, I don't take the 6 train into Wall Street. So I don't have the inside scoop. I don't have that kind of money to play with. So what I do have is the ability to look at, you know, the spreadsheets in the same manner that Buffett does, who does have that kind of capability to be able to pick up the phone and go, hey, thinking about buying, and what do you got? Yeah. Right? Which he may be doing an Oxy right now, which he's been buying that oil company. But the revenue per employee and their pricing power, those are the two things that I consider when I look at a dividend stock.
That's it. Those are 2 responses I haven't gotten yet. So that's really interesting. I like that. Yeah. Okay. So so last question. Like I said, we're skipping around a lot, but so someone has decided that, you know, they're watching today's video, however old they are, they're watching today's video. They decided that they're going to get started in investing. They decided that they're going to get started with dividend investing. Mm-hmm. What are your tips for them?
I mean, what I just said, right? Like, look at those 2 factors, because as you said, nobody's really looked at those. And that's kind of alarming to me. Like, why hasn't somebody looked at those factors? Because that really is the lifeblood. Let's face it, money's not important. It is when it's a business. Mm-hmm. It's backed. It's about the only thing that keeps it alive. Yeah. Right? Is the money. So I would say those 2 things are super huge, but also you really do have, when you think about investing for dividends, what's your time? What's your window? Mm. Are you 60 getting into it? Yeah. Or are you in your 20s getting into it? You can make different mistakes. You can play the longer game, right? Your time horizon, and I hate that damn word because it's such a buzzword that, you know, office people love, but like your time horizon, it's a real thing in this conversation. Yeah. What is your goal as far as your target end date? Do you need to you can do investments. So are you putting more in now? Like, are you coming into investing into dividends now, but you're bringing, you know, a $1.7 million nest egg with you? Mm-hmm. That's your first bump in, and then you're going to stop putting in $5,000 a month? Or are you in your 20s and you can do, you know, $200 a week? Mm-hmm. Because that is 2 different answers. I would never expect, if I was a broker, God, I'm not, but if I was, I would never tell, you know, a 62-year-old man who's like, I've got about 18 years left, where should I go? To tell him the same, Apple. And then tell the same, you know, 24-year-old kid who's got a lot of time, a decent job, a promising career in an industry that's going to be around for a while. Take all those things into consideration. Measure that against your pricing power, your revenue per employee, because your dividend, matters more to the older guy, the
Yeah.
percentage,
Yeah.
than it does the younger guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Cause like you said, time horizon's like the buzzword of the whole thing, but like, that's one of the biggest things that people don't consider, as far as like what's going to be needed to get to your goal. It's all math. Like, obviously there's some projections in there as far as like, okay, I think I'm going to get an 8% average annual return or whatever, or this company's currently giving a 4% dividend. Do I expect them to continue to give a 4% dividend? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Whatever.
Right.
All that stuff's like variable in math and projections and stuff. But like the stuff that is constant and something that you can control, how long are you going to be investing? How much can you invest? What is your goal? Like, do you plan to be able to have enough in dividends by the time you're done to pay for your grocery bill every month, or do you want to live off of it? Like, those are big differences. Like, it's like, okay, do I need $500 a month for my portfolio? Do I need it to generate, $10,000 a month? Like, there's a big difference. Like you said, age, risk tolerance, like, is how much somebody wants, whether it's you managing a portfolio for someone, or how much, or if that person's managing it for themselves, like how much time do they want to put into that portfolio determines whether they want individual stocks or ETFs. All kinds of stuff like that. So there's a bunch of different factors to consider, but yeah, time horizon. And then what I always say as far as like the metrics, because I've gotten a bunch of different things that people care about. What I've always said about that is like, find ones that you understand, find ones that you can follow. And then what I like to do with my metrics is I like to try to find the metric, because I don't look into like deep into financial statements and stuff like that. Like, that stuff's really confusing to me. But what I like to do is like, okay, so-and-so does look into financial statements, and then so-and-so over here also looks into financial statements.
Yeah.
What if they look into them and I don't, but we end up coming to the same conclusion on the same companies? What can I narrow it down to that all these things have in common? So I don't know if you're familiar with my 3 metrics that I use. One is a dividend streak of at least 5 years, because that shows that they are consistent in paying and growing their dividend. And you're not like, oh, we pay this year, next year we're not gonna, like, I want that consistency.
Like Stonemore.
Yeah. I want a 3, 5, and 10-year dividend growth rate above 10%, preferably the longer one, the 10-year above 10%, because that shows that like I'm not only beating inflation, but my dividend's also growing.
Yep.
And then I want outperformance of the S&P 500 over the past 10 years. So like those are the only 3 and like if I had to add a 4th one, it would be like a payout ratio below a certain percentage, like 50 or 40%. Just so to show that they can continue to pay that dividend over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So like those are the ones that I care about. And like some people are looking on return on invested capital and this and that and cash flow and all those things. And not to say any of those things are wrong, but I don't understand them. And at the end of the day, we're getting to the same solution by solving for different problems. Like my thing is like, okay, cool. I like Intuit. I like Visa. I like Apple. I like Microsoft. I like Pool Corp. I like all those companies. Those are some of the same companies that some of the smart people have. And I didn't do any of the research that they did. Not to say I'm right or they're wrong or vice versa, but like, how can you narrow down some of the most complicated metrics to something that's very simple and get the same answer?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can literally say, okay, what is 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 to get to 10? Or you can just say, what's 5 × 2? Like, it's the same answer. You just got it a different way. So like, it's one, I don't know. It's one of those things. I'm really glad that you said about that, like time horizon. Cause it's one of the biggest factors that nobody like considers, like actually figure out like, okay, if this is successful, like if I'm going to consider my dividend journey successful, I'm going to live off my dividend portfolio when I'm 50. Like that's successful to me. My fallback plan is like, okay, if this can pay for like our family vacations every year and I never have to worry about paying for a family vacation, like I get $5,000 a year in dividends. By the time I like say something goes wrong, none of my stuff worked out, I make it to 50, I'm only getting $5,000 a year in dividends. Cool. For the rest of my life, we have a free family vacation that we're going to be able to do from our dividend portfolio. Like just something like that. Okay, that's a fallback plan. Like that's obviously not the goal of this, but like that's something I.
No, you're right. It's the same thing. Of like I said, it's like I always show like the kid that worked for me. Like I don't pay my phone bill. AT&T pays my AT&T phone bill. Mm-hmm. When you start thinking in terms of, I'll give you an example. Okay, you say you have $400,000 in a retirement account. You could use that and go buy something, right? Absolutely. Could you use it and go? Maybe you always wanted a Lamborghini or something. Cool. Would it be better if you put $400,000 down on like a $1.6 million building?
Yeah.
Had it cash flowing, financed the Lamborghini, but someone else is paying for it. So yeah, you're financing it, but like, yeah, you're not really paying for it. Your tenants are.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the building appreciation goes up. year over year. You get the tax benefits of it. Like, this is the stuff. This is how you get there.
Yeah.
But again, we've said it. We beat this like a dead horse. They're not teaching us this.
Well,
They're not. And it's up to people like us to teach others, to show them that it's real. You don't have to wear the suit and tie. You don't have to have an MBA initials after your name to do that. You can do this as just regular people. And in fact, I think when regular people, normal, whatever, how I don't like they're not normal, but like when I say unassuming people start following this method, these are the people, okay, that are the ones that end up leaving $3 million to their town library.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Because money for them was, the wealthy people say money's way of keeping score.
Yeah.
And that sounds idiotic, childish, braggadocious, whatever you want to call it, okay? Until you start making some real money in this world. And then you realize how accurate that is. Suddenly, when you do 8 figures in 1 year, okay, you start realizing 9 really isn't that hard to do. I just have to do this a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to put, so, all right. So, yeah. So, but again, okay, going back to what we said about an hour ago, which is like, I can't have a conversation with somebody like, yeah, I think I'm going to try to hit 100 million next 36 months. What does that sound like to 2 people in a diner who are, miserably bickering and bitching about their job?
Yeah.
Sounds like you're bragging.
Yeah.
This guy's living this life. This is real. This can happen, and it can happen to everybody. It happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the son of a mechanic. My mother, I don't think she went past 6th grade. Stay-at-home mom. It's real and it can happen. It's just the mindset. It's in how you apply it, the people you surround yourself with. And if you're willing to, as we said much earlier, eat a little bit of shit up front, you can have it all later. You can, but there's a price.
Yeah. It's the art of delayed gratification that nobody's taught.
100%. You said it, man. That's it. That's actually the term.
Yeah. Yeah, where like everybody wants it now, and then like, oh yeah, this is cool, but like, I don't care about tomorrow. Like one thing I'm trying to like, I don't believe in New Year's resolutions, but one thing I'm really trying to like do from now on is like trying to protect future Troy, as far as like, if, for the simplest term is like, if I have a plate that I just ate a sandwich off of the night I ate the sandwich, I can put it in the sink, and like wash it in the morning. That's future Troy's problem. Or I can take the 4 seconds it takes to wash a plate and just wash it now, and then I save future Troy from having to do that. And like doing that day over day, week over week, month over month, like that adds up to so much. Like why are you punishing your future self when you can just do it now? Nobody wants to wash a dish. Nobody wants to fold their clothes. Like, just do it now, get it out of the way. Like, you're going to have to do it eventually.
You know what the shopping cart theory is?
It's
been proven real. So they did this like on a national scale, like all different regions of the country. People that put the shopping cart, when you go to the grocery store, okay, and you take all your food out, you put it in the trunk or your car or your truck or SUV, whatever, it doesn't matter what you drive. Okay. The people that take the carriage and put it back into the corral traditionally there was a percentage, it was like 30 or 40% more annual income than the people who just take it and leave it next to their car.
What?
It's a behavior, and it starts with the little things that become rituals. Your habits, okay, create your wealth.
Yeah.
It's not in I'm going to study for a big thing. I'm going to try to get this big opportunity. You're most likely not going to get it, dude. And even if you do, you're going to fleece it and you're going to lose it because those memories are fleeting, right? When you create the little habits that become rituals, that's where your success actually is.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett became far more wealthier from 60 to 89 than he did for the first 59 years of his life.
Yeah.
It's something like crazy, like 80% or 90% of his wealth has been made in the last like 15 years or something like that because of the compounding.
Yeah.
So let's be honest, the guy's been consistent for like 90 years.
His little bar chart's annoying. Like, it's just like it's annoying because like not only are his bars giant now because he makes a lot of money, especially like off of dividends and stuff like that, but like his bars are so big now that it makes the bars where he was making $100 million look like they're just $1. Like, I'm just like, that's a big bar, but it's just next to bigger bars. So,
dude, when people start having a share price at $300,000 and $400,000 a share,
yeah.
What is that about?
Imagine not being able to dollar cost average into that. That would suck. Yeah. That would be ridiculous. But anyway, so hey, Ted, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak with me. I had a blast. I mean, we didn't do a ton about dividends, but I think this was a very, very, very beneficial episode. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Definitely.
Oh man, I had a great time.
This is your chance. Go ahead and plug your book, plug where people can find you, plug all your stuff.
Yeah. So listen, the book is based on a premise of I had a great success and a really big failure that followed it afterward. And I took everything from the success. I took everything from the failure. I put everything into this book so that somebody can, if one person can read this thing and not have to go through this, then it's a win. Like it's like my duty paying it forward, right? Like I'm never going to, this book is never going to make me rich. It's like $15. I mean, I'm going to sell probably a few hundred, maybe a few thousand a year. This is never really going to pay my bills. But if it helps somebody in the contracting space, perhaps a younger gentleman about to get into the space or whatever, that 1 out of 7, like we talked about earlier, if it helps somebody avoid what I went through, I lost tens of millions of dollars and about 1.5 years of my sanity and life into this, all because I trusted people and I was maybe a little too comfortable, right? That I shouldn't have. And what I tried to do in this book is illustrate how easy that is to do. Even when you're constantly checking the boxes, it's easy to be distracted by all of it. So the name of the book is I don't want to say it because it's a swear, but
Unbleep.
Here it is. Unbleep your contracting business. I've been in construction. This next year is my 30th year going in. I have a master license in like 7 states. I built a company from a closet in my house with a laptop to 12 states. We were nationwide. So I had some great people along the way. I've met some phenomenal mentors, some very wealthy individuals who've been able to really expedite and help me leapfrog the process I'm in now. It's funny, Troy, I took this business had a valuation at one point of just under $70 million. And again, I did that in 6 years with no outside money. I'll be able to do that now in 24 months.
Compounding.
You know, just because of what I've learned to go through it. So if I can help somebody do that too, awesome. But it's more so about helping people avoid the pitfall of the industry, of people. And when you start to taste and emit success, because it success leaves clues, okay? That's when the vampires come in. You got to be a little concerned. You got to be a little more closed off. That's what it's really about. But thanks for letting me push that because I really want to help people. I really, really want to help people with that. Yeah. So, but thanks for having me today. This has been fun, dude. I got to tell you, I know it hasn't been a whole lot about dividends, but I feel like we covered a very broad base of investing in general, and maybe you can get some new followers from it too, and that would be a great thing for you, for them too.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I think there's a lot of value. I think somebody might come in here for expecting a dividend conversation, get a little bit out of that, and then a lot of it from something else. So,
I hope so.
Yeah, there we go. Well, thank you again, and until next time. We'll talk to you
later.
All
right, man. Thanks so much.
And that's going to wrap up this week's discussion. I really hope you enjoyed my conversation with today's guest, and thank you for spending part of your day with us. Remember, if you want to be on your very own episode of Dividend Discussion, make sure you reach out via email at dividendobsession@gmail.com, and I'll be in touch. But until next time, see you.